TheSerfs here. Ben Burgis will be joining us hopefully shortly. They're running a little late. They said, hey, I'm the person who's written a book, so all the dumb plebs can wait. You know, he's your average liberal elitist. You know how they act. So we're gonna have to wait on the libtard Ben Burgis. But first, before anything happens, I'd like to say the rules and then allow people to introduce themselves. So the first rule, of course, for everybody is to do nothing TOS. Obviously, nobody wants to have their channels removed if they're restreaming this, or for me, who is streaming it on my channel. Another rule, of course, is that if you are unable to get involved in the conversation, I have a notepad here. And if you raise your hand, I will write your name down, and I'll try to make sure the conversation comes over to you at some point. Here is another rule. Everybody will have an intro period and an outro period. I don't care if that person just said that your favorite politician is a big old doo-doo head or whatever. I don't care. You have to sit there and you got to take it. It sucks. You will have time to respond, though. You would have an open period and you can use your intro or your outro in a similar manner. Okay. There are a few banned words. Now, the reason why I've banned these words is not because I hate free speech. I love the free peach, man. I love peaches. My thing is simply that when these words are used, the conversation is no longer about the topic. It is now about somebody using the word. And the words that are banned are basically any slurs being used against your opponents, and words like the B word, the C word, and the R word. If you don't know what word I'm talking about, you can DM me and I can clarify if you don't know which words I specifically mean. Okay. Is there any questions on anything else I need to clarify? Okay, Loyal, what's the question?
Can I still call you a scumbag piece of shit?
Of course you can call me a scumbag piece of shit, Loyal Logic. You need to still tell the truth, okay? You still need to tell the truth. I'm still here grifting, aren't I? Okay. Lastly,
the charges are alleged. The
alleged scumbag piece of shit. Yeah. So, I would like to say to everybody at home, do not rely on political Twitch streamers for all your opinions. That is a very dunderhead thing to do. Please go to other sources. I don't care if it's if it's the most biased thing in the world, but please, anything else than just political Twitch streamers. If somebody is an expert in a topic we're going to talk about, they will clarify at the beginning that, hey, I work in this field about this, right? If we were talking about arms smuggling, then probably I would speak up and talk about my alleged experience in the business, right? Okay. Do we all understand the rules clearly? Is there any questions need to be asked? No? Wonderful. So we were going to start this off by allowing people to introduce themselves. And as always, we're going to start in the top left-hand corner. Oh, Serfs?
Oh, I just had a question. Booksmarts, why is Lycan in your corner?
Lycan's in everyone's corner. He's got
I'm always in his corner. Yeah.
Oh.
He's got our back.
On my screen, Booksmarts has Lycan in like the bottom right corner.
It's he's got his he's got our back, Serfs. Oh. He's standing with the working man, okay? So we're going to put him...
Listen, DGGers look out for each other, okay? It's that simple.
We're going to start in the top left-hand corner with Lycan, as always.
All right. Well, let's see. First of all, Dylan, thank you for having this podcast. It's always great to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Lycan. And I just want to say, I am looking forward to the conservatives on here. I'm looking forward to you guys apologizing for Trump, downplaying or shifting blame for the Capitol riots and mocking calls for unity because you care more about owning the libs than realizing your caucus has a white radical nationalist problem. In fact, here's a good litmus test. If any conservative on this podcast thinks that Lauren Boebert has ever made a good point on Twitter or on the House floor, you're probably not to be trusted and need to be verified. But that said, let's not make this a left versus right circle jerk, right? There's a few leftists on here. Now, I don't know Mr. Burgess, but I do know you, Mr. Lance, and I'm very familiar with your anti-liberal propaganda. So I'm looking forward to the leftists on here pretending Biden is just slightly less awful than Trump. If you think terminally online politicians like political warriors like Sean Vids are examples of rational, objective thought leadership or leftist values rather than rabid, unfettered critics of every policy that isn't a sharp turn down progressive avenue, you're likely a partisan ideologue, and you're just as bad as the centrists who don't do anything. So I hope you enjoy watching the red wave in 2022, 2024, and maybe beyond that with your irrational nitpicking as you parade that as holding Biden accountable. So looking forward to the podcast, looking forward to the discussion, and that's it. Thank you, Dylan.
problem. Love to have you on. Now we're gonna throw it over to Loyal Logic, resident fifth columnist undermining this country. How you doing, Loyal? I love you.
Yeah, I love you too, brother. Yeah, I'm Loyal Logic. Been on the platform for quite a long time now. Just a Republican talking shit. Looking forward to liking somehow sticking things on Republicans like usual that we don't say, just like people assumed I didn't think Biden won, even though the next day I said he did. But yeah, love you guys. Look forward to the chat.
Okay. Oh, and I did forget to say this. I will say I would encourage everyone to be as respectful as possible for productive dialogue. I will not tell you, hey, that was a mean comment. I'm not going to nanny you. I am not the nanny state, okay? I'll get you the welfare, but I will not get you the polite comments, okay? So I just want to make that clear that I will ask you to be polite, but I will not enforce it because, again, free speech. So I'm going to throw it over to CTV next to introduce themselves.
Good evening, Mr. Dylan Burns. I once again appreciate the invitation back. Everybody in the room, I am not as suspect as Lycan over here, right? He pretty much just called everybody else out in the room, right? So clearly there's, I don't know, like a need over there to try and establish something right off the bat. I did not know who the hell Lauren Boebert was until you said the name, but I got to tell you, when I go to this woman's Twitter page and I see her sitting there with a sidearm right on her hip, I gotta say, brother, I agree with that, right? So for everybody else, I am critically thinking veteran. I served 9 years on Ohio-class submarines as a machinist mate auxiliaryman, so I know about diesel engines, hydraulics, pneumatics, refrigeration, and the like, to include controlling an atmosphere. I do these political panels because I enjoy the Constitution, the reading of it, and the understanding of it, and I definitely am happy to be here with these fine gentlemen tonight.
Yes, and also I would like to say in CTV's community, also known as the Wolf Den, I am made an official wolf shaman. I just wanted to clear that. If you guys wanted to join though, you would all have to start as wolf zygotes, so you'd have to work your way up. I just wanted to make that clear for everybody. These titles are not just bestowed; you have to work for it. Okay. Next, we're going to go over to Lecture Fan.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for having me on. I know it's been a long, long time since I've been on any podcasts on Twitch. Frankly, I quit doing them because I try to surround myself with people who are positive and uplifting. I do Bible studies on Twitch. I'm very respectful. I'm professional. And I just have found that a lot of the stuff that you see on these Twitch political podcasts is so toxic and negative that I actually don't want to have that in my life. We have very amount of limited time on earth and a limited amount of time, and who you choose to spend it with and what kind of content you consume has a huge impact on your life. But critical thinking veteran made a pretty decent case for why I should come back on, and so I'm back on, and I appreciate you having me on, Dylan. And I think it's just so typical for Lycan to not bring up all of the leftist violence and all in his little intro. So hypocritical. We saw actual violence in Portland just this week with Antifa attacking the Democrat headquarters. Not one word of that in Lycan, but he wants to make a big boogeyman out of the 0.00001% of Trump supporters that are the radical violent extremists or whatever he called them. So it'll be interesting to talk about that. I've been on Twitch since 2015. I believe in basic notions of constitutional government, such as federalism, separation of powers, an independent judiciary, private property, basic notions of good government and what America was founded upon. And the problem that we see today is that the Democrat Party and the modern American left has totally turned their back on all of those just basic notions of what makes a constitutional republic a free country. And so, it's a big problem when you've got one party in a big part of the country totally rejecting notions like free speech, gun rights, private property rights, things that not only America, but, the entire Enlightenment basically gave rise to, and we see that being rejected. And I'm sure we'll see a lot more of it tonight, and I'm sure it'll be just absolutely grotesque to watch. And so I apologize to anybody that's going to have to see that. Thanks, Dylan.
No problem. When is your Bible study?
Wednesday nights. Wednesday
It's really
night Bible
good.
study.
What
It's really
everybody
good.
Everybody,
day? What
everybody,
time?
everybody knows that you do Bible studies on Wednesday night,
On Wednesday night?
5:30 p.m. Eastern, or I'm sorry, 5:30 p.m. Mountain.
Mountain. Okay.
You never been to a youth group or an adults group? Come on, Dylan.
They're always Wednesday night.
I know they are.
I grew up in a small city where every Sunday my grandmother would slick my hair back and she'd drag me to church. Okay. And you know what? It's somewhat stuck with me, and I think I would like to keep up that Sunday tradition. I'm gonna throw it over now, actually, to Ben Burgis, who just joined us. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good, thank you, Dylan.
The first topic, which is actually we're gonna start in a little bit for everybody in chat. Somebody just asked, is gonna be should Trump be impeached again? But we're still doing intros for everybody in chat. So Ben Burgis, would you like to introduce yourself to the chat?
Sure. So I wrote a book called Give Them an Argument, Logic for the Left. I'm a columnist for Jacobin Magazine, and I'm the host of a YouTube show and podcast called Give Them an Argument, which is live every Monday night at 7:30, and that's probably good for an introduction.
Oh, I'm wonderful to have you. You were a little late, so I'll just clarify one rule, which is really important. Let's say there's a lot of people here, so let's say you're frustrated and you can't make a way in. If you raise your hand, I'll write your name down on this notepad I have, and I'll make sure at some point I bring the conversation over to you so you can comment. Okay? Wonderful. So I'm gonna throw it over to TheSerfs next.
Hey, I'm Lance from TheSerfs. I am not an expert in anything. I'm basically just a human dumpster fire on the internet, and I'm actually just here to make friends tonight, and I look forward to it.
Ooh.
Wow. You're gonna have a lot of convincing to do to win me over. I'm gonna throw it over to Book.
Hi, my name is Book Smarts or Bookington J Smarts. You can call me Book. I enjoy learning about politics. I particularly want to hear from like the conservative side of things with what they're cranky about. Because as someone who like used to be pretty conservative myself, I'm actually pretty happy with a lot of like what the current administration has done and what little time they've had. So I'd be interested to hear how like true conservatives have any problem with some of the things that we're moving towards.
Okay, and the last intro will be Endernax.
Why do I always have to go last? Like, what is this? There were so many different things I wanted to bounce off of. Like for Lycan, I was hoping I was next because I was going to go like, why do you care what the Serfs has to say? They're Canadian, but I couldn't say that. And then like fucking Dylan Burns brought up that he was a wolf shaman in Critically Thinking Veterans Discord. I'm the only other wolf shaman in that Discord. Everybody, I wanted to brag about that. Okay, and then like, and he took my joke about the wolf zygote thing. Anyways, listen, I'm Endernax. I'm some weird amalgamation of probably like Loyal Logic, TheSerfs TV, and Lycan, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just like basically as based as you can get on every subject. People, say things about me that they really shouldn't. Pretty dumb things. We're not going to bring that up today. So we're going to have a good time. And I'm really just here to make friends and make some points. That's basically it. I'm not I don't know. I gave up debate lording. You haven't seen me on many hippy dippies recently, so I'm reformed now. It's just about being nice to people.
He's reformed. He went to Debate Lord AA. Okay, he went there,
Yep.
got reformed. He stopped watching Destiny videos and he got back in check. So I will say now one more time, we're going to have a small intro period for every topic, so you can clarify what you believe about it while nobody interrupts you. Then we'll have an open space where people talk about the topic, and then an end period where you can have an outro where you will not be interrupted again. Again, the notepad is important. Raise your hand if you really can't make your way into the discussion, but it is an open period. Try your best to. And one last thing. If at any point I start speaking, everybody else needs to shut up immediately. The reason I'm speaking up is not to make a point. It's because the conversation's gotten too hectic, or I want to move the conversation to a different area. So if you hear me speaking, recognize my voice, memorize it in your head, you got to shut up. I'm not trying to bully anybody with it. I'm just trying to keep this orderly because we have eight people here, many with different political views. So the first topic is, should Trump have been impeached again? Donald Trump was recently impeached a second time during his presidency, and there is a lot of contention on whether he should have been impeached for that second time. Should he have been impeached again? I'm going to start in the top left-hand order with Lycan.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. I believe that absolutely Trump should have been impeached. The reality is that for 2 months, Donald Trump incited the violence that occurred on the 6th of January. It's going to be said by people on this panel that he did not, but at the end of the day, he did in such amazing fashion lead people to believe that the election was stolen. And I think last week Hutch made an amazing point on this show, which was, of course, what they did was the rational next move. If you believe that democracy had been stolen within the United States, why not storm the Capitol and stop the election from being certified? Who would think that's an irrational thing? The problem is that all of the claims that were being made, that were fabricated, that were falsified, that were just completely skewed, led people to believe this absolute garbage. And so with that happening, he's directly responsible. Him, Rudy Giuliani, and everyone else are directly responsible. Even after the Capitol riots, Donald Trump still couldn't get a unifying message of condemnation without saying, but we won, but you're bad. And it didn't even start with you're bad. It started with, I understand how you feel. Go home, please. So at the end of the day, he is responsible for this. And the impeachment is our government and hopefully the representatives of the people saying, that's fucked up. You can't do that, dog. And he shouldn't be allowed to run for office ever again. He should not be allowed to be within the politisphere of the United States outside of his dumb fuck Twitter rants, which, I might become religious again if he never gets back on Twitter.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Loyal Logic.
I mean, I just don't see the point. I mean, I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm totally for anybody left, right, center being impeached if there's evidence. But the fact is that they didn't even read anything he said during the impeachment. They didn't. Go. People were like, oh, they must have read. They didn't read one word. And if someone could show me evidence that he incited violence, like I said, I'm totally for it. And then Lycan's trying to say, well, he incited people by saying the election was fraudulent. Okay, what about the left that's been inciting violence, thinking all Trump supporters are Nazis and bad people? So what, they don't take any responsibility? There's inside, you could say if you want to use they said they did something, they stole the election, thus people are going to get angry, then where's the accountability for the left saying all Trump supporters are Nazis, thus people go and when they see it, they think they're Nazis. What do you do to Nazis? I know what you're supposed to do to Nazis. Can't say it here on Twitch. So I don't understand this thing. Listen, totally for him being impeached if there's something there. There's nothing there. Move the fuck on. Get on the platform. Do what you're going to do. Show the Americans you're better, which you haven't yet. And it's sad that this is going to only, like you said, like in 2022, 2024. And guess what? That's how you're going to lose. So it's sad that we're here, folks. But again, show me evidence and I'm totally on board. But other than he said the election's fraudulent, which I disagree with, obviously. I said Biden won. But that's not inciting violence. So that's it.
Okay, next I'm going to go throw it over to CTV.
Well, I think that what the impeachment has really done the second time around has basically cheapened what it means to be impeached, right? First time it went through, they didn't get him. They say sure they impeached him in the House, but he wasn't convicted in the Senate. So what the fuck is the point of that, right? Just seems like a waste of time. And then the second time around, again, same thing. Well, congratulations. You've got a majority of people in the House to vote with some dumb shit, right? So what did you accomplish, though? You literally didn't accomplish anything. It's not like he stopped being the commander in chief. He didn't stop being the president. He just got impeached and you got a number of people to fucking agree with it, right? So what was the point? So I don't know. I mean, it just seems like a bunch of political grandstanding for Democrats whenever they go and make everybody else watch this process. So where now we have somebody that's bringing up an impeachment case right now against Joe Biden with regard to his involvement in Ukraine, right? That's happening. Is that not happening, Logic? I saw the tweet.
I mean, they're talking about it.
We can't. Look,
right. So since that's happening, right? It's cheapened it. Now this is going to be happening, and now we're all going to be watching this shit, right? And I don't know. I just feel like that the impeachment process should mean a lot more than just creating reality TV for the United States populace to watch.
Okay. Next, I'm going to throw it over to Ben Burgis.
Yeah. Look, I think that if in moral terms, certainly, I think that Trump was encouraging the mob that stormed the Capitol. He was at the very least talking out of both sides of his mouth about it. Even when he came out at a certain point in the day and said, go home, he was also telling them that he loved them, and things like this, like, about a mob of QAnon rioters, who were sacking the Capitol. Whether that adds up to something for which he should be legally culpable, I think is a more complicated question. But look, should Trump be impeached? Yeah, he should be impeached. He should be impeached for lots of stuff. I think that we don't do nearly enough holding presidents and former presidents accountable for their lawlessness in this country. Between Ford pardoning Nixon, Obama saying about CIA torture that he was going to look forward, not backward. I think that if we started to impose some real consequence for the most consequential forms of presidential lawlessness, I'd be all for that. I just think that that there are much bigger ticket items than his ambiguous incitement to do that about, like real serious crimes against humanity, kids in cages, the involvement in the genocidal Saudi war in Yemen, where he doubled drone strikes, the dropping the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, which is a war crime, pretty much by definition. So if anybody cared, what I thought about why Trump should be impeached, those would all be way ahead of this on my list.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Lecture Fan.
Okay, of course Trump should not be impeached. What the Democrats and apparently other people on this panel want to impeach Trump for is for exercising squarely within his First Amendment rights. What Trump did with his statements about the election fraud is squarely within his First Amendment rights to do. And so you're going to impeach a president for simply exercising their First Amendment rights. That is a very, very dangerous thing to do. And it's simply another example of the left and the Democrats not caring at all about free speech. And so I'm sorry, but I'm not going to listen to any Democrat say, no, I actually do care about free speech, but no, just admit you don't agree with free speech. Just admit you don't agree with a lot of the founding principles of this country, and free speech being first and foremost. And so, this whole idea about incitement, it's not incitement. As a matter of law, it is not incitement, period. Plain and simple, it's just not. Trump literally said, peacefully march on the Capitol. He literally used the word peacefully. And so it's simply not incitement. The idea that it is it has no weight whatsoever. And impeachment is supposed to be for crimes. Trump didn't commit a crime. Trump did not commit any crime whatsoever. This is outrageous. And Loyal Logic is exactly right. Like, so much of what the Democrats and the left say leads to violence. And it's like, do you guys not think it's incitement to go around saying that America is a racist country? Is it not incitement to go around saying cops are racist? This is a systemically racist police force. And then look at what Antifa and BLM and all the violence that they engaged in, and nobody on the Democratic left wants to hold any of those people accountable. And so it's rank hypocrisy. It's completely wrong as a matter of law. It absolutely completely cheapens impeachment. Now it's like, oh, you're going to impeach Trump? Who cares? You already impeached him once. It doesn't matter. Now impeachment has gone from like an actual important constitutional process. It's another constitutional process that Democrats have just cheapened and made it just into the shabby thing. Now who cares? Now Biden's about to get Biden's already had articles of impeachment filed against him now. I mean, it's taken a very serious and important part of our Constitution and just thrown it into the rubbish. It's an absolute disaster. It's completely out of hand. And then, Ben Burgis basically is like, oh no, don't impeach him for that, but impeach him because Orange Man bad. This is outrageous. This is just hatred for Trump. This is Trump derangement syndrome. This is stage 5 TDS. We just hate Trump. We want to impeach Trump. And it's like, you guys just got a new president and you've got Democrat control of both houses, and all you can talk about is get Trump, get Trump. Trump's not even in the White House anymore. Trump's out of office. The Constitution
I don't know
says
who
you
you're
can impeach
responding to. It's
presidents.
certainly not
Burgess.
me.
The
Burgess, we
Constitution
don't
says
talk
you
when
can impeach
intro segment.
presidents. It doesn't say you can impeach ex-presidents. And the number one thing right after it says that you can impeach is to remove people from office. So it's like, hey, Democrats, why don't you guys actually say something positive? And like, why don't you talk about some of your plans for the country instead of like just going overboard with the orange man, bad Trump derangement stage 5 stuff? And it's like, it's completely ridiculous.
Okay, I just want to clarify, because this happened, this is the second time it's happened. And I know we have some new guests today. When people doing intro segments, we try not to interrupt each other because it's supposed to be uninterrupted intros on what you think about the topic. We will have an open segment where you can respond, go back and forth all you want. If you think someone said something outrageous, just keep it in your mind, and in a little bit, you'll be able to respond to it. I will now going to throw this over to TheSerfs TV. Good luck on making friends tonight.
Okay, for starters, I think we should impeach Lecture Fan's microphone. And secondly, to Lycan, I think you impeach the feelings in my heart, sir. Why did you come out at me right out of the gates? We had so much ground to cover. I can't believe this. I'm destroyed already. But on a serious, genuine note, when it comes to impeachment, I think Trump should have been impeached for a very many of things, including the thing he was impeached for, which was kind of ridiculous because that was something he was impeached for, and he was found to have been on a phone call. The phone call that he said the things when he was trying to do a quid pro quo with Ukraine, and then right afterwards, that was the evidence they used during the impeachment trial. But he was still acquitted because the Senate be what the Senate was at the time. So that was silly. So at this point, this might even be one of those kind of like Academy Award situations where they award the award like years later for a movie that they shouldn't have won it for, but they're like, we should have given it to you like 20 years ago, but fuck it, we'll do it now because like you're owed that impeachment. So that might be what this one is. I still think that this one is valid as well. I do live in a time and place where you can't get impeached for having like kids in cages. You can't get impeached for the systematic abuse and rape that happened to hundreds of kids who were locked up by ICE. But yeah, impeach Trump. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, we're gonna throw it over to Booksmarts.
So I want to start out by saying I think it's incredibly disingenuous to hear Lecture Fan talking about constitutional processes. It seems like you only care about those when it benefits your political team. And I think that if you're saying that the Biden administration had absolutely no plans, I think that that's way off too. If anything, my criticism of the Biden administration is that we didn't do enough in this first day. And I've heard nothing but plans out of their mouths, and plans that I think are not nearly as ambitious as I would have wanted. So it's interesting to hear that. And then from CTV, I too agree that like these constitutional processes are very, very important. And I think that there's a reason why it was divided into multiple steps. I think giving the Democrats a lot of like pushback just because they can only get through step 1 because the other side of the aisle is holding off on things that they probably should engage in for the sake of unity of the whole country is interesting to say the least. Like if any of you are pushing for unity, whether it's in your own party or for the country, I feel like it's a no-brainer to impeach him. I think that Donald Trump is something that is like going to prove to be a problem for this country, and he's going to prove to be a problem for the Republican Party. So if you guys don't handle that, if you guys don't take him off of your roster, if you guys don't find a way to kind of quarantine this problem, and I know that the Republicans aren't good at quarantining, so I wish you the best of luck, but if you don't contain this problem that you have going on, it's going to infect not only your constituency, but the country to a greater extent that it already has. You guys have quite the outbreak, and I just hope you get a handle on it. That's all.
Okay. Last, I'm going to give it over to Endernax, and I'm going to ask Endernax to use the time wisely because I'm going to go away and get something to drink quick so I don't have to move for the next 3 hours since I have to be here for the whole thing. So Endernax, I'm trusting you to follow all the rules. Chat, if he breaks any of them, permaban, okay? High stakes.
I'm not going to break any rules, okay? All I'm going to say is, listen, this is a very serious moment in our country. Chuck Schumer went to the Senate floor and talked about how Trump is inciting an insurrection. And I'm just here to say that if you're going to put Trump in prison for inciting an insurrection, then where do you stop? Like AOC, Tulsi Gabbard, Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, like where do you stop? It will never end. All of these people will be in prison. There's some really messed up people in this world who are into some really messed up things. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't want to put Dianne Feinstein in prison for something that's not her fault. Okay. Anyways, I digress. Listen, the impeachment thing, I will go out on a limb here and say that Ben Burgis is a leftist, and so when he was talking to you, lecture fan, specifically, he was like, "Well, if we were going to impeach people for things I believe are reasonably impeachable, we'd have impeached." I'm assuming he'd probably include, Obama, Bush, Bill Clinton, like all of these people as potentially impeachable. So there's going to be a split on this panel. I already feel it coming between the liberals and the leftists, who are probably going to yell at each other for very specific things. Meanwhile, like it feels like the liberals are going to like try and logic bro out the conservatives, which is fine. I think this is pretty much just a waste of time. It's a stall tactic. It's an absolute sham that Joe Biden didn't have like $2,000 checks ready to go for the American people day one. That apparently the Democratic caucus didn't even think that they would win the 2 seats in Georgia. So they didn't even like think in their head, like maybe there's a 5% chance we win. We might as well plan for that contingency so we can help the American people who have been suffering through, the worst pandemic in modern history. But no, that wasn't in their mind. Instead, they want to send an impeachment trial to the Senate that's never going to get through. This idea that you're somehow going to quote unquote contain Trump is a novel idea, considering that Trump really isn't the problem in the Republican Party. It's rather a symptom of a broader problem in the United States as a whole. And that's that there's a lot of people who feel like the system is not working for them, and that there's economic distress to such an extent that they're willing to take a shot and say fuck you to the establishment and vote for the billionaire guy who is on reality TV shows. Okay, it's funny to me that you're like, oh, we're going to contain this person. That's the funny part to me, because there is no containing this. It only gets worse from here, and you're probably going to see a surge in populism on the left, even though you might not have seen it with the surge of boomer Democrats who switched over to make sure that Joe Biden won. As things progress, as the needs of working class individuals continue to not be met, they will vote for more and more radical people as a means of trying to solve their problems. And there's going to be a massive whiplash. And the fact that Joe Biden hasn't done enough on his first couple of days, mind you, FDR's biggest policy proposal was passed in 5 days after he was elected, and they don't even have checks ready to go to the House floor when they have. Mind you, Joe Biden literally said, I will get you $2,000 checks immediately if you get us these seats in Georgia. And then they were like, well, the American people can wait till March. Okay, have fun sending your amnesty bill that's going to die in the Senate. Great virtue signaling there. I'm super happy we have a productive, unified country that's going right back towards the immigration rhetoric that disunites us. Thank you. God bless. That's all I got.
Okay, now it's open. You can respond to any comments you've heard. Do your best to be orderly, and good luck.
All right. So
I should have made a bet. I knew Lycan was going to speak first. I knew it. I should have made a bet.
You should have. All right. So first of all, I agree with Endernax on one thing. AOC's feet are a threat to American democracy. But to Book Smart's point about double standards, I want to point you guys to Dan Crenshaw's Twitter, because you will see a tweet from him about 3 hours ago where he's going to bring up a bunch.
Her feet?
Yes. Anyway,
why?
Because it's a joke. It's a meme about her feet pics.
Oh,
that's humor starting off before I go in deep. Okay. So, Book Smarts points to a really good point about the double standards, though. If you go to Dan Crenshaw's Twitter, you're going to see a bunch of shit where he's pulling out these arguments that gets recycled every year. There's always blame to be put. There's always blame to be pointed at a president, where they say, oh, well, this president was doing that right before that person got there. This president was responsible for this. It's kind of like the whole economy thing, where one president inherits a fucked up economy, fixes it, and then the next one gets credit for it, right? Donald Trump, looking at you right there, buddy. But going to the most egregious shit that was just spewed in the last 15 fucking minutes is from my good friend, lecture fan. It is not your First Amendment right to shout fire in a movie theater.
Did he do that?
What Donald Trump did.
One of the
Did he do
biggest
that?
misnomers.
What?
No.
What?
Did-
What?
quote it.
What?
Quote
What?
it. What did he say, Lycan? What did he say?
Wait, 3
Pull up the
fucking
quote.
months
What
of
Trump
I
said.
lost the election, or I didn't lose the election.
No. Shouting fire in a movie theater is an incitement. Please show me. If you have it right now, I
2
will
months
side
of
with you.
rhetoric. I'm sorry.
Where's the incitement?
What
Where's
do
the
you mean by
incitement?
incitement? The incitement is the decisive action of taking a team to say, hey, the election was fraudulent.
No, wait,
we
taking
actually
the left.
won. It was stolen from
So
us.
what about the
Yeah,
left
wait,
saying
when you
Trump-
say
Trump's
when you
the
say the
left?
election was stolen from us.
Okay, one second. Okay, that
Could there
went
be
off
so
the deep
many
end
people
quickly.
in jail if
Yeah.
that was incitement?
Let's give me a moment. We had 2 people yelling over each other at the same time.
I love Lycan.
Loyal. You asked a question about why is it incitement. I would like to hear Lycan clarify why he thinks it's incitement. Then you can respond to that. I just want to hear it clearly.
Absolutely. 2 months of Donald J. Trump. Is it Jay? I think it's Jay. Donald J. Trump saying that the election was fraudulent, that it was stolen from him, that these multiple states, in a time where experts are saying that it is the most secure election we've ever had, where just 4 years ago, a Republican Congress ran a study that showed that over 40 fucking years, that we have not had any significant voter fraud of any instance that would have led to Donald Trump losing the popular vote, which is the whole reason, because he couldn't believe the idea that he lost the popular vote in 2016 and believed it was a mass wave of illegal immigrants. So the Republicans found out, guess what? Voter fraud ain't a problem in the United States. So with the eyes of the world on this, with the security of our election stepped up to such a great extent, Donald Trump comes out and says, this was stolen from me, with no evidence, with no proof. In fact, he says the claim and then comes out with Rudy Giuliani, who says there was tons of fraud. We don't have the evidence. Call us and show us where the evidence is. So that is, for 2 months, Donald Trump telling his base, who in a very large majority of his votership believes the election was in fact stolen. So leading them to believe that, leading them down that path of misinformation when he knows he's full of shit and he knows he's lying, they are then taking the logical next course, which is to distrust our elections and to believe that they're being robbed and that democracy is under attack. 61%.
Well, I got a quick question for you, Lycan.
No, I'm next, CTV.
61% of Trump voters believe that Americans' way of life is under attack and that violence may be necessary to fix it.
Okay,
So,
wait. These stats. Let me. He misquoted stats. Let me just, please. I'll let you go, Loyal Logic. I just want to say one thing.
Quote the
Do you
stat.
think Trump is also responsible for the rise in Democrats believing that political violence is also okay?
That's what I'm going to get to.
I'm just curious. Like, if it is Donald Trump,
wait,
right?
hold on. Wait,
can I respond?
All right, so wait,
Can I
let
respond?
Loyal respond because then I want to interject this comment.
Listen. I asked and you failed, and it's really sad because all you had to do is say, listen, here's what he said that incited violence. Okay, that's all you had to do, because all you're saying is that he said something and that people got riled up and then did an illegal act.
That
so
sounds like
I can do better than
wait,
Lycan. I mean, he says some clear shit. You're pretending like you didn't look at that. Come on, Loyal.
Okay. I want to hear Loyal finish.
Okay, so if that's the case, then why has nobody spoke up against the left leaders? People like Maxine Waters saying, if you see people out in the streets, causes. I mean, this is the point, is that people say things, other people react. This is not a direct call to violence or anything like that. He didn't do nothing wrong. If you could sit there and go, here's what Loyal, this is what he said. And then I'd go, okay, great. I'm with you. I'm 100% with you, because I believe that Biden won. I was not one of those people. So that's my point, is that what you're saying is that he said something, other people did something. Okay, I'll agree with you. Let's say we'll go, but then where's the accountability that you've never said? Lycan, I follow you. You've never said one time, oh, the Democrats saying this, it's leading to violence in the streets against Trump supporters and the right. Not all the right is Nazis. Not all the right believes in this. There's good people like Loyal who are good people that aren't, that's my point. But it's not happening. So it just makes no sense to me, and how someone as smart as you can say this when you know it's not true. There's no direct incitement of violence. And if you have one, please supply it and I will side with you.
Just these 12 words here, but when the New York Times, Washington Post, and MSN falsely claiming Russian fraud, could that be considered incitement?
Can I respond to that? Because I've got
great question.
That's an amazing question. So the Russian incident was completely okay being brought up. So let's go through this, because I just did a video on this a little bit ago. So the Russian claim was this. The Russian reality is that Russia.
You guys were giving him an out. You guys gave him an out to what I said.
No.
Good
Okay,
job,
I'm sorry.
I
can do this all day. I don't want to give other people a chance to speak. To go to you, Loyal, I disagree. There's a false equivalency between the violence on the left, violence on the right. It goes back to a point that Lecture Fan made, which is where he said, Hold on. He said that people being critical of police is an incitement of violence against police.
Calling people
I completely
Nazis?
disagree. Hold on. No, I don't believe that that's right. I believe that anyone who uses fascist or Nazi, it's overdone. You guys are diminishing the
Well, what do
fucking
you
word.
think people do when they think Trump supporters are Nazis and you see a Trump supporter?
Yeah, you have a small group of people, some
Okay.
Antifa
What do you
assholes
think when
going
they
out
say
there.
they're
Wait,
punching
wait,
the
wait,
wrong
hold on.
president
Wait,
into the
wait,
office?
One at a
wait.
time.
This is
One
such-
at a time. One
Wait,
at
hold
a
on.
time.
There's a
or
false
what-
equivalency happening here.
Lycan,
Sir.
my voice rises, your voice goes down. It's like a diametrically opposed system we have here.
Yes, sir.
Where I speak up, you don't get louder. Okay, so Lycan, I want you to finish, and then we're gonna go to other people. Okay, so Lycan, please finish your statement.
Oh fuck. I don't know where to start. Okay, real quick.
You were
To Loyal-
finishing your response to Loyal, and then you were going to respond to Lecture Fan about Russia or somebody about Russia.
Okay, all right.
So I can see the-
Loyal, I believe that's a false equivalency. I think kind of like what Lecture Fan said earlier with regards to police and the laws and all, or criticizing of police and the laws. It's not incitement of anything against police. It's a very valid criticism. We have data to prove that police are more likely to use force and prosecute and do X, Y, and Z towards the black community than other communities. So that's us addressing an actual problem. So if you want to talk about the violence,
goes and
if you
kills
want to
police
talk about the
officers,
violence, and that's bad, that's wrong. But that is not the same as what happened in the Capitol riots. That's not the same as what Donald Trump did. We are actually addressing a real problem with the protests and the riots that were happening. Anyway, to talk about what Lecture Fan said with regards to Russia, that was a completely legitimate thing. The intelligence community came out and said, "Hey, Russia did interfere. Russia fucked with us." And the Republicans once again led the investigation into it and said it was completely right. The only bit of wrongdoing is that an FBI, now ex-FBI lawyer, lied on a FISA warrant, and that lie on the FISA warrant led to someone who being spied on that the warrant was obtained illegally. The thing is, though, is that individual did have Russian contacts. However, he was also a CIA source. So there was a whole bunch of misinformation about that made it seem like, oh, the Trump campaign was being spied on. The Trump campaign where the left made false allegations about Russia. No, Russia wasn't an interference. The Republican Congress said there was a counterterrorism threat within the Trump campaign, and everything there was legitimate. No one said Trump did not win the election. They said Russia interfered, and we do not to this day know the extent that they had an impact on. That is objective truth and reality, validated by conservatives along with liberals.
So
I just wanted to butt
after
in.
you respond, I wanted to give it over to the SERFs since they raised their hand a
Okay,
little bit.
that sounds good.
Okay.
Sorry. I just want to say one thing, and that's this. Okay, so if you look at data on like polarization, where Americans overlap, where they agree, what's going on, like what you would expect, if you want unity, you got to have a bit of an overlap in order to get the majority of people to be chill with an administration. But over the years, this has gone further and further and further, and as both the right wing and the left wing have gone further and further towards their radical extremes, but not necessarily, right? The normal distribution just moves out. And I wanted to make a point in that you said, oh, these people are so stupid that they call them fascists and Nazis. Okay, before Donald Trump was even elected, there were mobs outside of his rallies in places like California and Illinois, et cetera, where they were like throwing eggs at Trump supporters and beating the shit out of them. This was before the Proud Boys were a thing. This was before all of the crazy like boogeyman that are now attacked by the left wing. Before all these institutions even existed, they were attacking these people, okay? So what ends up happening is you have this spiral on both sides where they basically go, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? Oh my God, but the left did this, but the right did that, but the left did this, but the right did that. Okay, great. And while you're doing this, you're making it so everybody hates each other. And in chat right now, just so you know, before when you were saying that shit about how, oh, well, they're not all Nazis. I'm an agreeable liberal. Dylan's chat was spamming, they are Nazis in all caps.
Exactly.
They are Nazis. They're all fucking morons. This is what happens. This is what happens because I get it. I get it. Oh my God, the right wing's so much worse. Yeah. Okay. We're actually going to end up at a point where we end up doing things to each other in Minecraft. And I prefer we don't get to that point. I'd like a country that stays together. I'd like institutions to stay where they are. I'd like to not have a world collapse because America is no longer part of the global equation. Okay. So I don't know, honest to God, what the solution is, but I just wanted to point this out because it's so fucking stupid. And that's what's going to happen here tonight. It's going to be, well, the right, well, the left, well, the right, well, the right. Okay, great. I don't care. Great. Maybe you should just condemn all the fucking violence. I guess that's not cool for you. You can't condemn Antifa burning buildings or throwing Molotov cocktails at police. They're on your side. Just fucking condemn them and get the fuck over it. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Fuck Antifa. They're pieces of shit. They engage in shitty ass practices. Condemn them. It's that simple. And then you could go, well, see, I'm morally consistent. And then they have nothing to complain about. And then you can point it out over and over and over again and fucking logic on them. Okay, that's it.
Okay, next is going to be TheSerfs, and I've already written down Book and Lycan for since you raised your hands. Okay, Serfs.
Nice. So I just wanted to say, instead of all the whataboutism that we've just been saying so far, I've got the Center for Strategic and International Studies here, as well as the Department of Justice, and both of them have revealed that in 2019, 2/3 of all attacks came from the right to far right. In 2020, 90% of all domestic attacks came from the right. That's from the government itself, under a Republican president, by the way, and a Republican Senate at the time. Now, in terms of quotes from Donald Trump, I pulled up just randomly. These are the first ones that popped up in Google, but I'll just read you a few of them. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Quote 2, we're not going to let it happen. No one's going to let it happen. Quote 3, the Republicans have to get tougher. You're not going to have a Republican Party if we do not all get tougher. Quote 4, we're probably not going to be cheering so much for them when you never take back our country. We're going to walk down to the Capitol. We're going to have to show strength, and you have to be strong. So if you want,
where's the incitement, Lance?
Yeah,
Where's the
there's no
incitement?
I mean,
not
Lance,
incitement.
Lance,
That's not
I'm willing.
Showing
Look,
you're reading
Lance,
it in.
I am willing to come over to your side if you can go
All right.
loyal. Here is a quote, but you didn't supply anything, and that's all I'm asking for. I'm totally willing to concede on my point. I've said it multiple times. Twitter, everywhere. But there's nothing. It's a waste of time to do impeachment. Move the fuck on and let's get the $2,000 checks, not the $1,400. I'm totally for it.
Hey, we're totally on the same page there. Give workers $2,000.
Well, let's see. I mean, that's what I'm saying, Lance. I'm shocked that a guy like you would totally be for this instead of spending time supporting the common American people. Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked by this. You should say fuck impeachment. It's a waste of time. I'm shocked, Lance. No, you should. It's okay. That's fine, Lance. If you want to waste, if you want to waste time, Lance. If you want to waste time, that's fine.
How dare you?
Okay, well, let's not
I'm not trying to waste time. You're asking for quotes. This is someone, by the way, who's lying to the American people that the election was stolen from them, telling them, like, ad nauseum, day in, day out, the election was stolen, despite all the evidence against it, despite, the actual Republican governors who were like, yeah, this is not true. They're lying to you. The president is lying to you. As the president keeps lying to you, yes, he's inciting them towards this by saying, we're going to march on the Capitol. We're going to have to be strong. We cannot let our democracy go away. Those are incitements towards that. I mean,
okay.
Now maybe it's just a matter.
I guess they are in your fantasy world where somebody you can twist it and mold it, and if someone does an action. But I guess when I say someone calls all Trump supporters Nazis, and then someone goes out and kills a Trump supporter and says, well, they're a Nazi, that's not incitement. I guess they just did that on their own, right?
And then an Antifa group can say on loudspeaker on video that we took out the trash tonight after they murdered that guy.
Exactly.
But who cares, right?
Yeah, right.
It doesn't matter. But wait. I get it. It's a big deal. The Capitol was stormed. I 100% agree. Throw the people who went into the Capitol building in federal prison. That's fine by me. That's great. I am 100% on board. To the extent, the only claims that I have heard that would make me think, okay, yeah, there should be a trial, was if Trump knowingly and had conversations with people behind the scenes, delayed his response and didn't say anything when they were already in the Capitol building. And if you can match those timelines up, then okay, well, I think the trial is worthwhile.
And as far as I'm hearing, there's nothing that shows that there was delayed response.
Well, because it's completely reasonable in that regard. As a president, if people are fucking violently going into the U.S. Capitol building, you come out and condemn that shit immediately. You send in the police, make sure to get those people out. That's obvious. And they shot a girl because of it. I mean, I'm surprised they had so much restraint. But we'll see. Huh?
Next is going to be Booksmarts.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, Loyal, with the Nazis thing, but it surprises me that you can't look at his speech and obviously see similar consequences for the way that they're talking. When he's literally talking about the person who is going to be in the seat of the presidency is somebody who was not elected to be there, that the wrong person is going to be in the office, that our country will be destroyed, which is literally what he said, and that we're not going to stand for that. How he can say all of these things in the exact same sentence, and you're going to sit here and argue pedantically over these details, or you're going to whataboutism to Antifa or to anti-Nazi people.
That's all you're doing with mine books. What about is
I didn't do shit because you talk over over me every time I tried to talk. So I haven't done shit. This is between you and Lycan, because Lycan can't pull up a quote. The fact that you're making Lycan pull up a quote when it's this brazen is surprising to me, because we spent a whole
show me
stream
something.
going through the entirety of this document where it was almost like every other stanza we were running into these issues.
Then why? Oh, I have a
But this
question.
is-
I don't know.
Why in the
You
House-
got to
God-
take it up with
Booksmarts.
NBC. You got some emails.
Booksmarts
you
got
gotta
No,
it
write
in the
to
regulated.
House,
That's
in
not
the
the people
House,
in here.
in the House, no, in the House, they didn't even read a direct quote from Trump. So
And you gotta message your rep, dude. That's not me. I'm saying in this call, the fact that you're giving Lycan so much trouble on this is surprising to me.
I
Because
don't
you
know
could do
how
your
it's
own research
surprising.
and see this. I'd
I've
expect that you
I-
looked at the speech, did you not? Did
yeah,
you not
it
feel
says-
like that
is there-
incited anything at all?
Book smarts. Hold on.
No.
You're book smarts. Book smarts. You literally are one of the people on this panel that I would be looking to just from what you're advertising, right? Which is book smarts. So if you're going to reference something in a particular document, that you would want that person to be having that ready up to go since you're actually quoting it, right? So I don't know how you're trying to attempt to make yourself hypocritical with the advertising brand that you have.
Oh, I'm
there
not
to
making
somehow
myself
justify
hypocritical. I'm
Lycan's
trying to
inability to be
prove
able
to
to pull
Loyal
up
that.
this quote, right? So, and I'll say it again since you weren't listening, right? Is that if the attempt that you're making here, right, is to somehow be hypocritical to your own branding for Lycan's sake whenever he doesn't have a quote to put out there. I'm curious what he's thinking, because you could pull anything just out of the ethos, right? So
Anything out of the ethos. Yeah, I'll have to keep
Yeah.
that in mind. I'll go grabbing for
Maybe-
that. Right now,
maybe
I'm
I-
grabbing
maybe-
for
so
the
what
you're saying
document
is
itself,
just you
though,
don't
and I seem to
believe
be
that if
coming up with
somebody's-
plenty of answers, though.
Wait,
now you're talking
maybe
over
I'm
me, right?
mistaken.
So
Maybe
the
I'm
same
mistaken,
shit,
but a
dude.
whataboutism only applies if you simply avoid the question that was asked to you in the first place, right? And Loyal Logic, I'm pretty sure he said, well, I don't believe that those are incitements to violence.
not
And then he
what
brought
whataboutism
up another thing. That's not whataboutism. That's him addressing your concern, saying he disagrees with you, and then bringing up something else to discuss.
No.
Whataboutism only applies if they didn't address your focal point or completely ignored it and brought up another topic.
Okay.
So you can keep screaming it, but
Next is going to be Lycan. They're next on the list. Lycan is muted,
Muted.
so
Sorry.
unmuted.
I was going to ask the question if you know what stochastic terrorism is, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that so I don't have to cede any attempt to take over my time. Stochastic terrorism. If I were to say that, Booksmarts is a really fucking horrible person and that behind the scenes he has been super manipulative and the cause for a lot of drama, and suddenly Booksmart starts getting a bunch of hate viewers who are then clipping him out of context, mass reporting him his channel, and then get him banned because of what I said. It doesn't matter that I didn't say, hey guys, don't go to Booksmart's or go to Booksmart's channel, mass report him, clip him out of context, get him in trouble, ruin his life. It doesn't matter that I didn't say that. I had no reason to say he was causing all this shit behind the scenes. And the fact that I lied about that, which led to this, is incitement. And that is what I'm saying Donald Trump did.
So you
Second
don't support
point,
free speech then? Can you
No,
just admit that?
no,
Can
that's
you
where-
just admit,
no,
just
lecture
admit
fan.
it,
That's where it
do
goes
not
back to what you
support free
said.
speech?
If you say fire in a movie theater, you were
No,
not
but what-
protected. You
that's
face
bad law,
consequences.
dude.
No, wait,
That's
wait.
It's not
law.
bad.
So
It's
you
not
think
bad
Donald
law.
Trump didn't
That is
believe it?
bad law. That is like when people hears that say that First Amendment lawyers, when they hear that, that's like nails on a chalkboard, because that is
Because
dicta.
for the layman,
That is
it's the
hold on, let
easiest
me explain
fucking
to you. No,
example.
let me explain to you. That is dicta from decades old case law that is no longer good, and under current Supreme Court precedent, that is not, you can't actually say, you can't actually say that and it's protected First Amendment speech. So that, quit saying like this cliche saying that's not even accurate anymore. Let me actually explain to you guys what incitement actually is, because obviously none of you
Wait.
guys
So if I go to a police
abandoned
and
murder.
say, hey,
well,
there's a
You guys
murder
have never
happening in
read
that house.
Well,
the
one
actual
at a
Supreme
time.
Court cases that actually
Hold on.
define what incitement is. It actually has a meaning. You can't just go around saying this just as a way to try to shut down free speech. You can't just change the meaning
not
of
engaging
incitement.
with the
It's
point.
part of your effort
You're not
to
engaging with the
actually
point.
shut down free speech.
You're not
So what
engaging with the
incitement
idea that
actually
he
is,
incited it.
incitement
You're
is
not
when you
engaging with the
actually
claim.
say
It's
something with the
stochastically
subject
applying
intent
okay,
things
okay.
to take care of it.
Okay. Give both of you give me a moment. I understand.
Okay, I haven't even talked for
give
like
me
15 minutes, and I
give me
say
a
2
moment.
seconds
Get
and
lecture
people
fan.
start
Lecture fan. You
interrupting me.
gotta give me a moment to clarify to everyone. I cannot hear anything that's going on with two people talking over each other. So I want to hear what lecture fan has to say, and then I'm gonna give it back over to
I haven't
Lycan,
talked.
and then I'm gonna give it over to Ben because Ben hasn't said anything either, and I want to make sure Ben has some time to talk.
Yeah, Lycan, back off, dude. Let me make a point without talking over me and then continuing to talk over me so nobody can hear what the hell is going on here. Okay, I actually want to explain to people what incitement is, because you guys are all throwing around this word, then you have no clue what it means, and you're twisting the word into something it doesn't mean as part of your overall effort to try to shut down free speech. So in order for it to be actual incitement, it has to be, you have to have a subjective intent with what you're saying to cause immediately and severe bodily harm, and it has to be objectively viewed as likely to create immediate and serious bodily harm. And more importantly, it has to be, in fact, likely to create immediate and severe bodily harm. And so under the Brandenburg v. Ohio, which is the Supreme Court's case that actually is sort of the seminal case on incitement, in that case, the Supreme Court said actually out and out endorsing violence doesn't even meet that standard. And there's really good policy reasons why you have a strict standard for what qualifies as incitement. And the policy reason behind it is because we value free speech. We want free speech. Yes, we do want to limit free speech for true incitement because of severe violence that could result from it. But it's a very, very narrow, the most narrow exception to genuine free speech. And I just told you the standards, and nothing Trump said is incitement under the standard that I just explained to you. That's not even up for debate. There's no point in debating that. It is not incitement. And you guys don't understand that the reason you have a narrow definition of incitement is to encourage free speech, which is why I'm saying just admit you don't like free speech, because you're trying to change the definition of the word to create this huge overbroad thing where now anything can be incitement. Under your ridiculous standard and definition, anything can be incitement. And that's our point about, okay, if you're going to use that as your standard for incitement, then I could sit here and list off 150 things just off the top of my head the Democrats have said that meet your silly standard for incitement that's not based in any kind of reality or actual law or actual standards, and it goes against free speech. So just either quit with your argument or just admit you do not support free speech and you think that we should shut down speech that you think has some, maybe way down the line, it might cause somebody to maybe think about doing something that's maybe kind of violent. I mean, it's a ridiculous standard.
Okay. Lycan, you can respond to that, obviously.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing is the lack of engagement with the idea that Donald Trump has any culpability for what happened. So if we want to lawyer it, fine. There are plenty of lawyers that are disagreeing with you. So I cannot have an engagement with that conversation the way you just did. But I can go off people who are much more educated than myself, who are probably equally educated to you, who are saying that it does fall under incitement. And I believe that stochastic terrorism is incitement of the violence that occurs. Period. End of story. I don't think I'm that irrational for believing that. Yeah, that's my.
You're making sense to me, buddy.
Well, the problem.
Okay. CTV, you go, and then we're gonna throw it to Ben Burgis because he hasn't had.
Appreciate it. So the problem with that Lycan is that in order for you to believe that Donald Trump was solely responsible for this, would have to assume that he knew in those moments that, and so would everybody else at the same time, would have to assume that the National Guard was not on station, or that the Capitol Police were not physically capable of handling a crowd there in the Capitol, and there would be no reason at all for the American people who are only being able to see the narrow windows through the news media that are covering these things, right, that they actually weren't there, right, and they were requested to be there, and there was information known to the government ahead of time that they have been there. And the fact that they weren't is not something that you can hold just one man responsible. This whole fucking government did it to us, right? And we're all sitting here at home watching this thing go, what in the fuck is our government doing? Why are they allowing this to happen? And that right there is where, if you can't call the whole government out and the whole response as all lacking from the start, and only attempt to just try to put it on one thing and say that Trump incited the whole thing, he would have to be aware of all this other things that was going to happen, and there was no way for that to even be known because of all the other things that were going on. So that's where your entire argument crumbles, and you're certainly
I just want to say that's
getting
why
into more partisan politics, and you're only showing your bias.
Okay.
I want to say that's why I want to say one thing quick. That's
Okay,
why
10
Mayor
seconds.
Bowser
10,
came
9.
out. That's why Mayor Bowser came out and said we're doing a full investigation, because they were even shocked. How did this happen? That's
Okay.
literally, she had a press conference about it.
Ben Burgess, you haven't had no time to talk yet, so I want to throw it over to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everybody else snorted a whole bunch of coke before we started, and now I'm kind of
You didn't know the rules?
shared, but
who didn't tell him the rules? Come on.
Did nobody give him the hit beforehand? Nobody? Okay. Well.
It's 2 bumps before the show, Ben. Next
okay,
time.
all right. Next time. Look, I think that all of the discussion of the definition of incitement is a little bit beside the point, given the way that impeachment works. That Congress has pretty much unlimited power to decide what constitutes a high crime and misdemeanor. It's a very different kind of context than ordinary criminal law. Such at least is my understanding. That said, on the broader, what I think is like the much broader issue of the impeachable things that Trump has done over the course of the last 4 years, and what the standards should be, and holding lawless presidents to account. I find it pretty funny to be accused of Trump derangement syndrome when I literally started by saying that earlier comment by saying that it is a much more general problem of decades long standing that presidents who commit serious crimes are not held to account. I would have absolutely been in favor of impeaching Barack Obama for sending drones to assassinate people outside of any battlefield or court of law, out or all around the world, countries that we aren't at war with. We could continue along those lines. But when I was listing off the specific things that I think that Trump has done that I think should count as high crimes and misdemeanors for the purposes of removal from office, if we want to start to try to impose some sort of standard of the rule of law on presidents in ways that that we have not, that Ford was not when he pardoned Nixon, that Obama was not, when he declined to prosecute any of the CIA tortures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then yeah, I think that kids in cages. I think dropping the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, which by its very nature, makes a mockery of any claim that you're trying, to only kill combatants and not civilians. All of these things I would absolutely consider to be high crimes, and that's not a matter of Trump derangement syndrome. In fact, I'm doing the opposite of saying that Trump is a special aberration from American history. I think we can talk about who's better and worse, and I think there are certain respects in which he made already very bad things much worse, and that the differences matter. But it is a much more general problem that we're not holding the executive branch to account when it commits serious crimes against humanity. So that's not a matter of orange man bad. That's a matter of human rights good.
Okay, I have a question to test whether you're really true about if this is not Trump derangement syndrome. Okay, so number one, if you think that you can impeach presidents even after they've left office, and number two, you think you should impeach them for kids in cages and drone strikes overseas, then you must think that we should immediately impeach Obama and immediately prevent him from holding any federal office again.
So right, Chip,
no, right now he's saying right now
because I literally just
right now,
said
like
gotcha.
Yeah,
that I didn't say. Yeah, of course.
I didn't hear you say we should immediately impeach Obama.
He's not a good
said
listener.
I
He's
would
a
be in favor of
lawyer.
impeaching Obama for those very things. Should we immediately do it? Look, we could do a big round. We could do a group trial and impeach a bunch of former presidents. I'd be all for it.
All right. Hey, look, I'll take. I was wrong. I was wrong to say it's Trump derangement syndrome. If you actually think we should impeach Obama right now, then I guess you were. I was wrong for saying the Trump derangement syndrome thing.
Okay, Lycan, you're raising your hand. You can take it up.
I want to circle back a little bit. I want to say that I was coming at this argument from a completely incorrect perspective. it doesn't matter what the legal definition of incitement is with regard to this discussion, because we're not talking about whether or not in a court of law Donald Trump could be charged with the incitement. There's the law, and then there's the spirit of the law. And we talk about the spirit of the law, and I believe at the very least, lecture, you'll agree with me here that we're talking about what is it implying. And I believe that we are implying with the spirit of incitement is that you are saying things that lead to an action, and that action causes harm. And Donald Trump's words from, first of all, actually, if we go back to 2016, where he said the election was fraudulent, and where he spent all that time saying the election was fraudulent, or not fraudulent, rather that he had been the victim of election fraud and all the illegal votes that were cast, and then that was proven wrong. But then he does the same thing again in 2020 election, and for 2 months goes real hard in the paint, trying to fabricate all these ideas, which then foster conspiracy theories, foster misinformation that is for a short time spread by Fox News, but seriously propagated by OAN and Newsmax and all these other organizations, and continues to feed that machine with his pawn Giuliani. You cannot say that he is not responsible for the fallout of that, which ended up being the insurrection in the Capitol. So no, maybe from a legal perspective, he would not actually be charged, but we're not talking about a court of law. We're talking about what did he do and what is he responsible? And he is responsible for the Capitol riots.
Nobody, but okay, then the serfs is next.
Yeah, I just, can you clarify this for me? It's not incitement to violence, even though we've been talking about that. I think it's for incitement to sedition. Isn't that's
Yeah, but
very
I mean,
different as well.
it goes down the line. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, technically, if you want to break, it goes down to incitement by which leads to sedition and an insurrection. And I mean, that's where the line goes.
Okay.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
like
The
for
actual
clarification on
wording
that.
of the article of impeachment is incitement to insurrection.
Yeah, but the line starts as, well, what did he do, and then it led to it.
Actually, Farron, trying to say something?
say, I mean, the worst part about all this is that the left actually had a chance, and Joe Biden and the Democrats actually had a chance to we had an opportunity at true unity here, where if the left and the Democrats had taken a more reasonable position and they had criticized Trump for trying to get Mike Pence to do something that Mike Pence had no power to do, you would have had unity amongst a lot of people, and you could have actually done a lot of good in this country. But because of the position that you guys have taken, which is so outlandish and so unsupported, now we're not even talking about some things that we might agree on. For example, if you guys criticize Trump for trying to pressure Mike Pence into doing something he had no power to do, I'm on board with that. But if you're going to go in to say, oh no, he should be impeached for incitement, it's so absurd. It's like you're going to divide. Now that causes division. And it's like, move on with your lives and stop taking outlandish
that's what I agree with.
Cause division.
That's why I agree with James Comey. And it's like, no, and I've agreed with him in the past, but James Comey came out and said, listen, he said, and you guys might not agree. I don't agree because it's weird to me, but he said, hey, come out and pardon Trump. And he said, because it's time to move on. And he's like, the sooner we get it past Trump, because I want to get past it. I don't want to sit here in this, and we keep turning, like Endermack said. It just keeps going, and you guys, and it's like, and I don't understand, because then when Lance, that's why I went after Lance, because I might disagree with Lance, but when Lance is like, I'm for impeachment, I'm just thinking, what, dude? This is wasting our time. We could be doing so many great things. I mean, and it's like, to me, we're fixated on Trump still, when we should be moving along and getting past Trump. So guess what? In 4 years or 2 years, the Democrats can say, look how much better we did if you guys do better. And then people will go, wow.
Okay, I was going to say to that, I think the Democrats did demonstrate that they would impeach him for something else when they impeached him for something else.
I don't know what that means. What do you?
It means that we impeached him for, I can't remember what exactly the charges was. Was it the violation of the emoluments clause? I'm not 100% sure. But it was during it was with the calls on Ukraine, correct? Wasn't it the withholding of funds?
Yeah, but
that was abuse of power, which is not a crime either. And so that the Democrats are just going around impeaching presidents for not even committing crimes, and that's what nobody cares about. This impeachment, Trump, like you leftist politicos, you care about the fact that we're getting Trump impeached right now. 80% of Americans don't care at all that Trump got impeached and we're going to have an impeachment. Nobody cares. Most Americans are like, I wonder what the Democrats are going to be doing now that the Democrats are taking in control. And all you leftist politicals are like, impeach Trump.
That's
Trump,
what my mom
Trump.
said.
Like,
my mom did not care about impeachment. She was so happy that Biden was going to get in
Nobody
office
cares.
and things were going to be done. And now that she's hearing all this stuff about impeachment, she was like, well, what about our money? You know, what's, and I'm just like, yeah, well, I tried to tell you, they're not going to give it up. They're going to keep on doing this.
Okay.
Right.
Is there anybody else that wants to take a jab at this? No? Okay. Then we're going to go straight in the outros, and we're going to then move on to the next topic. Try to keep outros short as possible as we try to move on to the next topic, which I think is going to be a lot more extensive due to how many executive orders have been signed in such a short period of time. We're going to start in the bottom right-hand corner with Endernax.
Don't put people in prison for inciting erections.
Okay, Booksmarts.
Yeah, I've kind of been persuaded. I mean, it seems like there's absolutely no evidence to support the idea that Trump incited these people to do anything. I don't think any reasonable American could listen to the things that he said and feel pressured to do any kind of radical change with the government. I think that he's been one of the most milquetoast presidents that we've had in a long while. And I'm looking forward to the radical change under Biden. Maybe that'll offer us a little bit more fodder for discussions about removing a politician from office, because clearly this isn't the one.
Next is TheSerfs.
I think if you keep asking why people would want him impeached, there's a handful of things that come with that. He can't ever run for office again. I believe he would lose his pension, other stuff of that nature. So I think those are some of the big reasons outside of the precedent that it sets. But I mean, frankly, if you ask me, I kind of want him to form and create that Patriot Party, because I think it'll fracture the Republicans completely and make them unelectable for generations to come. So go Patriot Party.
Okay, next is going to be Lecture.
No, I guess I really don't have anything to add. I feel like I made my points, and there was no any response to any of my points that were, compelling in any way, shape, or form. So I think I rest my case.
Okay, I'm going to go it over to Ben.
Yeah. So I guess I still think that that the point about the difference between the context of an impeachment, where Congress has a pretty much unrestricted constitutional ability to define high crimes any way they want to, and what incitement to insurrection or abuse of power might mean in that context, and what they mean in and what incitement to violence would mean in an ordinary criminal case, I think is a pretty important point, given the amount of time we spent fixating on the definition of incitement that I didn't really hear a good response to. But I also didn't really hear a good response to any of the other impeachable crimes by Donald Trump that I brought up. So I don't know if people think that people think that the human rights abuses at the southern border, the kids in cages, the war crimes in Afghanistan, all of that stuff just aren't interesting crimes. They're not the sort of crimes that we should hold people accountable for. But I sure do.
Okay, and I'm just going to throw it over to CTV.
Well, I think we went around a large variety of topics as we were covering this thing, and I'm going to take this back to the 6, where as I was watching everything and I heard Trump's specific language, and then after not seeing the National Guard outside of the Capitol, going, what in the fuck is actually going on here? Because the language that Donald Trump used, just being used, didn't make me in that moment go, okay, I'm about to see a damn rebellion takedown, right? I didn't feel like that was about to happen. And then when I ended up seeing it happen, well, the most logical person to point that at is Trump, right? But then after you see the entire government and its lack of response or initial setup to it, it's like, well, there's the fucking problem, right? And it's not just one guy, it's this whole thing that wasn't working together because of the divisiveness that just keeps getting pushed. So I don't feel like anybody addressed anything to do with what was happening last summer with regard to the BLM riots. None of the points were addressed by anybody on the left. So I guess we're just going to leave that where it is, right? So I don't know. I'm hoping that we get less hypocriticalness and we get more critical thinking whenever we're moving forward on it.
Okay, we're gonna move it now over to Loyal Logic.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to happen, CTV. That's why some of us are just say la vie, because it's going to get much worse. I mean, it's going to get much worse. We are going to have massive division in this country. The fact that we're talking about a Patriot Act 2 targeting certain individuals, no one cares. No one cares. I'm with Ben. I'm with Ben. I'm totally for. I'm okay with it, Ben. I'm okay with presidents being tried with crime. If there's legitimacy there, let's talk about it. But the idea though, Ben, is the sad fact is there's not guys like you saying, hey, let's look at things, what's a crime, what's not, there's not. It's just let's go after whatever we can to make a political statement, and there's no honor, and people don't care about the common American anymore. That's just the truth. I mean, no one. I mean, here's a Republican that believes in universal health care. Does anybody give a shit? No, because I'm a Republican. I'm evil. I'm a Nazi. And then people go, oh, well, that's not Lycan because I'm friends with Lycan. But smart. Oh no, that's not you. But that doesn't matter because the overarching narrative is that's what I am, and that's what's going to continue being spread. And with this impeachment, that's all. It's all churning all day, like Endermax said. It's never going to stop. It's going to keep going. And when the Patriot Act 2 gets passed, and people start getting targeted, more bank accounts frozen, and all this other stuff, people aren't going to care because they're the enemy. We painted them the enemy instead of someone that they can reach across the aisle, say, hey, you believe in universal health care? Well, let's talk about it. Maybe we could let's work on these ideas. And that's what we've come to is the divided country. It's going to get more divided over bullshit like this impeachment, when we should be focusing on how to get $2,000 into Americans' bank accounts. How are we going to get universal health care? How are we going to do these things that Biden seems to want to do, but I doubt he's going to do it because what's going to happen? Trump this, Trump that, Republicans this, Republicans that. And it's that.
Okay, next is gonna be Lycan.
All right. First thing, I want to talk about statistics real quick, or not statistics, rather some surveys that were done after the insurrection. First of all, I believe, because I like you guys overall, and I assume good faith that you just get your information from conservative sources and that it is a little skewed. But the correct answer when it's regards to with Donald Trump is that 70% of Post and ABC respondents and 75% of Pew respondents believe that Trump bears at least some responsibility for the Capitol attack, though roughly half of Republicans said Trump is not responsible at all. But the number that I really think it highlights the issue here is that 54% of Americans as a whole believe it would have been better for the country if Trump had been removed. And then 79% of Republicans, though, disagreed. So I think that when you say that most people, I believe, lecture you throughout the number 80%, I think that's what you're talking about. It's Republicans as a majority disagree, but Americans as a majority agree. The other thing I want to address is something really important because it's probably going to come up throughout the entire evening is Antifa versus the Proud Boys. And there's something very important to focus on. Violence from both is bad, 100%. And I have no problem calling that out. I'm not a fan of Antifa, and I think that they do a lot of harm for the left and make the left look bad and lead to a lot more division. However, Antifa is monitored by the FBI as a threat in onesie twosies. The Proud Boys are monitored as a massive hate group that leads to further joining of the militia groups like the 3%ers and whatnot. It is a feeder group for that. And even though they repeatedly deny white nationalist sentiments and harboring white nationalist views, the reality speaks to otherwise. So when you're going to look at the two and you're going to look at the violence, there isn't a center take to be had with, well, the Proud Boys and Antifa are both causing violence. One is actually monitored by the United States government as a group that is coordinating violence behind the scenes as an organization. So if you're going to, really play that game, you should probably be a little more informed about the two. I get it that one is on your side, one is on the other side, and it's easy to just say both are bad, but it does harm and it gives them more validity as people continue to not denounce them.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next topic, which is Biden's executive orders. I believe on the first day he did 15 executive orders, and I think it was 2 deferments. I forget what the other 2 were called. Yesterday he did 10 COVID-19 related executive orders, and I believe today was another round of a round of economic executive orders. He has done a lot of executive orders in a very short period of time. For comparison, in fact, Trump did 2 executive orders on the first day, while Trump did 15. So there's actually a lot here to talk about in comparison to other presidencies when they first go in and do executive orders. So if you guys hook on to just one in particular, that's fine. But we might this one I'm going to probably allocate a little bit more time than the other topics due to the amount of executive orders we're going to cover here. So you may bring up any executive order he has signed in, which gives you a lot of room to cover. You pick and choose what you want. We're going to start this time in the bottom left-hand corner with TheSerfs TV.
Yeah, I mean, contrary to what Lycan might believe, I am actually very pleased with all the executive orders across the board. I think some of them are reversal. No, I'm just teasing Lycan because you said that the left was gonna shit on Biden this entire stream. But don't worry. No, I didn't find a single one I had a problem with. I'm obviously really thrilled about some of the ones that I thought were very necessary for progress in general. I think gender identity should be protected in the workplace, so I was thrilled to see that one amongst others. Obviously, nixing the Keystone XL pipeline was fantastic, especially for members of the Indigenous community in Canada, which I'm pretty attached to. So that was also incredible. And yeah, I mean, some of them are just reversals. It's basically, let's just go back 4 years. And so they're just things that were already there, like the Paris Climate Agreement. I would obviously like to see a lot more. I remember that Biden had promised day one that he was going to reunite children separated from their families by ICE. That has not happened. I think that is definitely a crime against humanity every single day that is allowed to keep happening. So I would like to see something done about that immediately. But there's nothing I can do in terms of complaints for those executive orders across the board. I think they were all necessary, and I'm happy they're implemented.
Quick question: has he announced like a day for immigration related executive orders? I know he did some related.
He's already signed one, but I don't think he set a date or made anything.
I know it's just he's been theming every day as like this day is for these executive orders, these days for the first 100 days. That's how he's theming it.
Has he mentioned anything about ending the war in Yemen as well? Supporting it through Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
It could happen,
well,
brother.
actually, I believe Tony Blinken said they're going to review the terrorist designation. I shouldn't be talking, but I believe Tony Blinken said he would review the terrorist designation for the Houthis, and he and Kamala Harris have both endorsed ending the war in Yemen. Anyway, I'm going to throw it over.
As they send more troops into Syria. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, my
Endernex.
Fuck you.
Endernex, you know what? I need to stay quiet.
I'm Dylan Burns, the peacemonger. Joe Biden's not a neocon in neoliberal clothing.
Endernex.
This is what happens when you participate, Dylan.
See, this is what happens. See, I ask one question, and then see, this is why Endernex is a troublemaker.
Every neocon I know voted for Joe Biden and was happy when he was elected.
Endernex. Thank you. Book smarts.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with everything. Again, I'm interested in seeing where the conservatives come out. I really thought that they would try to compromise on more stuff, given their guy wound up being a crazy person. But I guess we'll see. Probably more of the same.
Okay, we're gonna go to Ben Burgis.
Yeah, I guess I am going to do a little bit of shitting on Biden, but I not because there's anything really in the executive orders that I disagree with. I am with Lance on that. I think that it's all pretty much all good stuff, but it is also pretty much all good stuff that's just about restoring what the status quo was on January 19th, 2017. So, for example, Biden, rejoined the Paris Climate, Accords, which is a good thing. But let's also try to remember what environmentalists were actually saying about the Paris Climate Accords in 2015, when this stuff was all announced. And at the time, they were very rightly saying that this is a recipe for a burning world, that they really didn't do anything in the Paris Climate Accords to meaningfully move the ball forward on global climate action. They just kind of, took a bunch of commitments from what various countries were already kind of willing to do and stapled them together and called them an accord. So given the urgency of that issue, that's why, even though I do support all of these orders, I'm definitely not happy, about it, because we're being given something that was grotesquely inadequate in 2015 after an additional half decade of the problem becoming worse, and told to get excited about that. And I think that's pretty emblematic of a lot of the executive orders. I think if you look at the inaugural address that Biden gave, um, he, like, for example, there he used the word, the phrase systemic racism a bunch of times to go, okay, well, great. So what do we mean by systemic racism? What is it that makes it systemic? And presumably that would have to do with things like the wildly unequal distribution of resources between different racial and ethnic groups in the United States as a result of the history of slavery and Jim Crow and all of that stuff, the wildly unequal distribution of incarceration and police violence that partially results from that unequal distribution of resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then you actually look, okay, great. So he's saying systemic racism. What is he doing in these executive orders about systemic racism? And it's pretty much taking an offensive report off a government website, rejiggering some of the methodology used for collecting statistics, and making it a little easier to do inclusivity trainings again at federal agencies, so that some corporate grifter like Robin DiAngelo can come and yell at people about their implicit bias. Again, I'm not against anything that Biden did. I'm just extremely underwhelmed by it, and I guess I just say, if you really listen to or read that inaugural address, it's very telling, because he spent a lot of time talking about Trump as an aberration, about what happened at the Capitol, about the peaceful transfer of power, all that stuff. But that wasn't even a renunciation of Republicans, never mind anything beyond that. In fact, the main theme of the speech was unity. He literally said that his pursuit of bipartisan unity was the equivalent for his presidency of Lincoln freeing the slaves for the Lincoln administration. That Lincoln said when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, his entire soul was in it, and if he and that if he would be remembered for anything, he would be remembered for this. He said, "Well, my entire soul is in unity," and so yeah. Given that I don't actually think bipartisanship is exciting on the same level as ending slavery, I wasn't especially happy to hear that. And I think a lot of the things that he did, a lot of the executive orders, a lot of the other day one actions, like terminating the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board, who was on a one-man crusade to stop the enforcement of labor laws, they're all good things. They're all necessary things, but they're all things that are almost all of cases. There are a few exceptions. I think stopping the Keystone Pipeline is great, but almost all of these things are about restoring what the status quo was 4 years ago. And what the status quo was 4 years ago was the problem. That's why everything that's happened since then happened in the first place. And if you just go back to that, it's going to keep happening, again and again and again. So that's why, as much as I think all of these things are good things as far as they don't go very far. And I'm not full of enthusiasm after seeing that first day.
Okay, now I'm gonna throw it over to Loyal Logic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ben. I mean, also it's an executive order. Yeah, I mean, he comes in, he does it. I don't care, because guess what? If a Republican wins in 4 years, it's gone again. And then also, I'm really happy Ben hit the mark. Guys like me who are climate change, I actually take steps in my real life to fight climate change. When the Paris climate, it was like everybody's looking around like this doesn't do anything. And then nobody takes into account personal responsibility. Like, and it's just like we sit here and we just want the government to do everything. And it's like, at the end of the day, if we want to change things like the climate, don't eat beef. I haven't ate beef in almost 10 years, folks. You know, do things like that if you really care, but you don't. It's just virtue signaling. And then even when the government does do something, like Ben says, it doesn't do enough. And I don't care. You know, I mean, yeah, that's great. It'll be gone and when a Republican comes in. That's what's sad. It's not actually anything's getting done. It's just executive orders, and it'll be gone if a Republican wins. And it's just sad because I want to see actual things done, and hopefully Biden can do them. It's not going to happen. We're going to have more. We're going to have more war. They're already talking about not withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. It's already being talked about day one. It's insane to me. It's like, oh wow, people, oh well, it's going to be anti-war Biden. I look around, I'm like, Ben, like, what are you talking about? We're going back to the status quo. Like, I just throw my hands up in the air. I'm like, do you guys not understand how we got Trump? And guess what? I wasn't a Trump guy right away because I've been a Republican for almost 18 years. And I wasn't a Trump guy right away because I'm not a partisan hack that, oh, MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. I didn't buy into it right away. But eventually I started hearing him. I'm like, okay, well, hopefully we're getting some of this addressed. And not everything he did got addressed. So it's sad. I'm with Ben on that. And, it is what it is. And I think Ben in a couple of years ago, yeah, look, we're just back to the status quo. And here I am bitching on the internet and nothing's going to get done. And if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to get deplatformed. My fucking bank account frozen because eventually they're going to go after the leftists as well. I think Ben knows that's how journalists go. Obama locked up more journalists than any other president in the United States history. So.
Okay, we're going to throw it over to Lycan. Oh,
Hello,
and
everyone.
one thing, Loyal. You're trying to save the climate with personal responsibility. Is that a plastic Starbucks cup behind you?
Yeah, it is. But guess what? If they had regular cups, I'd probably do it. But it is what it is.
And that's a plastic straw. That's not no paper straw, is it?
No.
Damn. I'm gonna throw it over to Lycan.
Real quick, just on that, Loyal. I don't know. I don't think you can do it now during COVID times, but in the future you can bring your own cup, and they will use the cup that you bring. They actually sell ones that have the Starbucks logo, so it looks like you got the Starbucks cup, and you can look cool still. But yeah, anyway.
They don't got the Trenta size. Just saying.
All right. Let's see. So executive orders. So earlier I talked a little bit about conservatives and how they flip flop in the usage of. And by the way, I want to qualify something real quick. When Donald Trump was elected, I was a conservative. Now, granted, my progressive slant started about 8 years ago when I changed my views on gay marriage. And so it was just one thing after another there. But I used to be conservative, so I empathize and I understand where a lot of you come from. But that said, looking at the way conservatives wield certain things, you can look at conservative dialogue on executive orders during the Obama administration, look at the dialogue flip during the Trump administration, and now look at it flip immediately. I'm going to point to Miss Boebert again. Representative Boebert tweets out 9:57 on the 21st of January, not even 24 hours after Homeboy was inaugurated. If Biden wants Congress to work with him, he should work with Congress instead of signing 15 executive orders and 2 executive actions to circumvent us. Super rich coming from the Republicans. The other thing I want to say, though, is that the commentary on the executive orders has already been made. I think everyone's touched on the good sides of these things. I don't really have anything I'm super critical of. I'm a little more critical of the Keystone Pipeline thing. And, SERFs, if you ever want to go into that, we totally can, because I'm not against certain aspects. I mean, trains are much, the point of transportation, trains are much less secure and safe as far as the pipeline goes. But that's a discussion that might...
Yeah, there's more CO2 by using trucks and trains as well. It's another point that you probably want to use. Sorry,
that's a good point.
Weapons.
It's okay. It's all right.
I can explain why, but yeah, that's another topic.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, SERFs. It's okay. And so, but I now again, I think Ben, I don't think. I think you can see what side of the politisphere I am on, but I am going to be critical of not so much right now, but in the future, especially with people like you with a massive platform and connections to other people and influence over farther leftist individuals. There is going to be a problem, and we're already seeing it. We saw it before he was inaugurated, where there is fair criticism of the administration, where we don't want to slip back into the status quo, versus very rabid attempts to be overly critical of every decision the individual makes. He's been in office for 2.5 days. We have some time for him to really get his administration ramped up and real change being made. So I'm not going to be overly critical of the idea that he didn't reverse any major systemic issue day one when it comes to policing or other laws and whatnot. And I worry about an overly critical far left that divides the left and makes it harder for our coalition to face down the issues of Republicans. And I also am not going to deride the guy, and I think it's wrong to deride the guy for not being derisive of half the country, because half the country still did vote for Donald Trump. We had record turnout for both sides of the Democrats and the Republicans. And you can't have a unifying message, which we do need unity. Like, our country is in a position where unity needs to be addressed. Healing needs to happen. That doesn't mean we don't address systemic issues. We don't help the poor. We don't help people of color. We don't help the LGBTQ community. That doesn't mean we stop progress, but it does mean that how we address these issues and how we pursue progress needs to be pragmatic. And I think being overly critical of him for not jumping down the progressive rabbit hole, I think that can lead to problems. And I really hope we don't go down that route, but signs point to,
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm going to throw it over to Lecture Fan.
All right. First of all, thank you, Lycan, for saying you liked me and you thought I was engaged in good faith. I also like you and think you're in good faith. Endernax, you were right. Neocons are Democrats now. What I think is really funny about this whole thing is to see all of these Democrats and leftists, without a hint of irony, without any shame whatsoever, all of a sudden supporting not only the unitary executive theory, which is the Bill Barr, Brett Kavanaugh theory of executive power, but also just the imperial presidency as a whole, and including, what Joe Biden did with the NLRB, which is supposed to be an independent agency. So I guess, this is actually, nothing new. If you actually look back at the last 70 to 80 years, it's actually been Democrat presidents who have done the most to expand executive power. And I've been consistently opposed to the expansion of executive power. I think the administrative state is out of control, needs to be cut back. I think Congress has abdicated a lot of its responsibility, and I was opposed to overarching use of executive power even under Trump. And so, I think it's really, really bad the way we're going, and to just see all these Democrats and leftists just, no shame, no irony, just, yep, we support this. Not only do we support the unitary executive and the imperial presidency, but it should have gone even farther. And I don't know. I think it's kind of silly too, because these executive orders, these aren't the real news. This isn't the most important thing that's going on. Neither is the Trump impeachment. The real news, what's really going on, is not being reported. It's not being discussed. What's really going on is all behind the scenes, all the corrupt dealings with Biden and the Democrat machine. That's what's really happening. These executive orders, it's like, whatever. The Keystone Pipeline was a horrible. I mean, what kind of a president kills thousands and thousands of good-paying union jobs day one? And then, what's so funny in, like, the Paris climate thing, Keystone, all this stuff, all that is to try to appease, the radical portion of the Democrat Party, the AOCs, and, the climate extremist nuts. It's just trying to throw a bone to people, and, good. Biden got rid of Keystone, and Biden rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. He cares about man-made global warming. And it's like, it's not going to matter. It makes very little. Frankly, there's going to be a lot of legal challenges to the Keystone decision. And boy, do I hope the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. You can't just not when the federal government has made deals, billions-dollar deals with other countries and multiple states and big businesses. And you've got, this many jobs on the line. So let's hope that gets thrown out. And so, that's kind of my take on it all.
Okay. Next is going to be CTV.
Well, I feel like everybody went around the room and did a good job of laying out everything that hell I might have wanted to talk about. So I'm just going to take this time to throw out the most interesting thing, right, that I learned in 2020, right? And the most interesting thing that I learned in 2020 is is that the word strap on, spelled backwards, is no parts.
That is
Right.
fucking amazing.
Right?
Lycan.
Right. And then there's literally, right, the irony in getting pregnant on a pull-out couch.
We have unity, everyone. We've achieved it.
So, the Keystone Pipeline getting shut down, that right there to me is amazing, right? I think Lecture Fan hit the nail on the head with that one. I think of some of the other points that we brought up are going to be really fun to talk about. So instead of just soaking up even more time, I'm going to throw it back so we can get into it.
Okay, Andrew next.
Yeah, I wanted to address something that Lycan said about like quibbling for neoliberals who don't do anything to actually help the American people and instead revert back to a status quo that literally resulted in them being willing to take a shot on the maniacal, reality TV show, man. Oh, it's opening statement, so you got to wait a second. It's you can't respond yet. Anyways, FDR passed his infamous banking bill legislation in, I think, 5 days after he was after he took office. Okay, 5 days. Joe Biden, the only bill that he had ready to send to the House floor was an amnesty bill that will literally die in the Senate. And you're fucking insane if you think that this virtue signaling bill had even like the slightest bit of utility. Like, unironically, the Jimmy Dore crowd with the force the vote shit was more pragmatic in what they were asking for, which was to separate the Democratic Party leadership on Medicare for all versus against Medicare for all, than sending an amnesty bill that literally is going to die in the Senate, regardless of all of the Democrats who are voting for it in the House. So congratulations. You're just going to continue enabling status quo and enabling the American people to go back to depravity, back to status quo. People are going to continue dying from opiates. They're going to continue losing their jobs. We've already lost 9 million jobs due to this pandemic. And what does Joe Biden do? He comes in and he slashes 70,000 jobs his first fucking day. Are you fucking kidding me? And then he lied about immediately giving $2,000 stimulus checks to the American people. He said immediately, but no, that can wait till March. But the virtue signaling amnesty bill, that can go to Congress. I have something to say. Biden has suggested that he may put the troops back in Afghanistan that Trump took out of Afghanistan at the last minute. You'll notice that Trump didn't really have any. He had some action shuffling troops around the Middle East to mostly as a vanity project, something to show the media like, look, I'm anti-war, I'm taking troops out. But in all reality, he would take troops out of Syria and put them in places like Afghanistan. He didn't do anything until he was no longer going to be in office. He was out, he was done, and he didn't have to worry about the neocon establishment attacking him and taking away their institutions from him. And he pulls some troops out of Afghanistan. And what does Biden do? What does the neocon administration that came out and endorsed Biden and backed him 100% do? They're sending the troops right back to fucking Afghanistan. And for all, I have no doubt. People meme about this, like, oh, Biden's going to start more wars. Okay, yeah, we're going to start more wars. Have fun with that. Have fun defending that too, as I know you will, because you're a partisan hack. Anyways, the Paris Climate Agreement, non-binding, stupid, doesn't mean anything whatsoever. It is too late for global climate change. Hundreds of millions of people are going to die. At this point, the conversation is about harm mitigation. How do we feed people? How do we feed hundreds of millions of people who are going to be starving to death because they don't have arable land? How do we make sure that they have shelter so that they don't die due to exposure? There is no way in hell that you are going to have enough reform on this planet, just from a pragmatic perspective, from thinking of different countries having different interests and not wanting to go along with things that the United States is spearheading or other parts of the world are spearheading. The things that you would need to get done and needed to get done 20 years ago. It's not happening. The projections are pretty clear. It's too late. We're fucked. Look to geoengineering and harm mitigation. Try to save as many lives as possible. That's my viewpoint. Paris Climate Agreement is basically hog shit. Keystone XL Pipeline, the canceling of the permit, basically the stupidest thing he could do. We already have traitor Canadians who are hosting Chinese troop activities up in the north. Literally, there was a troop exercise by the Chinese military trying to simulate counters to U.S. military equipment that was in the Arctic, basically countering United States strategic interest in the Arctic. And this is supposed to be our closest ally, and you're going to cut off like a further economic integration, basically more leverage we could have over the Canadian government. We're energy independent. We don't need the oil. But fuck it. If the cost to you not hosting Chinese troops for exercises and drills is to buy more of your fucking oil from Alberta, then we'll take it. We'll buy all your fucking oil. Okay, that's my viewpoint on it. Thank you. That's it. Oh, also, wait. I want to say one more thing. In Florida, a $15 minimum wage was passed, 60%. That state went wildly to Donald Trump. Okay, if that doesn't tell you what the United States and what the American people would unite around, I don't know what will, but you're just going to continue enabling neoliberal bullshit when in fact somebody like Bernie Sanders probably would have appealed way more to Trump supporters than Joe Biden ever did, and probably would have united the country more, ironically enough. Anyways, sorry. All right.
Okay, is there anybody I missed? No? Okay. Open floor.
Okay. So first of all, with regard to the unitary executive theory, one, I don't actually think that that you necessarily need to assert that to justify firing somebody who was wildly in violation of what his job is supposed to be. Two, certainly speaking for myself and for everybody else who I was following at the time, who was concerned about Bush era executive overreach, it wasn't primarily about that theory. It was primarily about shredding civil liberties. And none of the executive orders that we're talking about now do that. So I really don't see. I really don't see the relevance. I would also say that it's a little bit funny to talk about all the jobs that are lost because of the Keystone Pipeline being canceled at the same time as describing AOC and co. as environmental extremists, given that the entire point of the Green New Deal is to create millions and millions of new union jobs, high paying, creating, as part of this massive energy infrastructure changeover that would employ way more people that are currently unemployed. So
no,
in
theory,
well, no,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
economic illiteracy.
I think that's just indisputable. That
no, it's not. It's not, Ben. I've looked at it. It's not indisputable.
In order to have this kind of green energy transition, would create millions.
But then, Ben, I have a question.
Overall,
but then why didn't it work under Obama?
The only way we could deal with this stuff. I mean, I like the. I like the spirit of the, all these discussions about bringing the cup to Starbucks and all that stuff. It makes me think that you guys are really good people, but I don't think there's any amount of that that's going to do anything about a looming existential threat like climate change. I also did want to just really briefly say in response to Lycan that, the issue is not that Biden didn't, end systemic racism in his day one executive orders. The issue is that his race-related executive orders were largely symbolic bullshit. Like again, he took a report off a government website. He made it a little bit easier to have some largely meaningless, inclusivity trainings. He had people form like a group to review how statistical data, is calculated. Are there things that he actually could have done on day one that would have done something about meaningful systemic, disparities that have to do with things like poverty and life outcome and incarceration and police violence? Yeah, he could. He could pardon a whole bunch of people from and release them from federal prisons on day one. He could do what Bernie Sanders said he was going to do and direct the Justice Department to essentially legalize, marijuana, stop enforcing that on day one. He could invoke Section 1881A of the Social Security Act, which says that if there's been an environmental exposure, then everybody who's been exposed to it can be made eligible for Medicare. And he could at least try saying that COVID counted as that kind of exposure. Would that survive the legal battle? Maybe not. But the president tried to give every single American health care would be a hell of a lot better opening pitch for elections in 2 years and 4 years than the president took a report off a government website and like things of this nature. And finally, last thing about this idea that like it's illegitimate or a little too much to criticize what a president's priorities and goals seem to be based on how they act in their first couple days in office seems very odd to me, because I was marching in the streets against Donald Trump before he even took office, when there were huge marches about that. So it seems to me that applying the same principle, being hostile to Biden's, to Biden's agenda when he pretty much announces that agenda is largely limited to restoration of the pre-Trump status quo and pursuit of bipartisanship. Seems pretty legitimate to me, and I don't think that you have to say, screw you to those 70 million people or whatever who voted for Trump to say that it's a little much to say that bipartisan unity is a moral cause on par with the abolition of slavery. I think that if you actually want, you can have polarization one way or the other, but if you want to have better forms of polarization, I do agree with one of the things that Endernack said at the end of that, which is that the $15 minimum wage vote in Florida is a pretty good indication of what that more productive form of polarization that might unify a much larger category of people, what that might look like.
So I think that my issue is that I don't have an issue with being critical. I don't have an issue with the idea of analyzing, what he could have done. But I'm also not going to get too worked up of those actions being symbolic rather than directly impactful in the first couple days. I'm really looking forward to the next 100 days because I think it's in the next every president's first 100 days is something that's incredibly important to defining the rest of their term, both in the sense of what challenges, the unknowns that come out of it, but also, the plan that they have, what they unveil, right? Now, if he had made a lot of promises about immediate executive orders and didn't follow through on those, that's something where I believe that's fair criticism. Hey, you said you were going to do this, you didn't do that. I just worry about over criticism. And again, to be really, really clear, because it can come off as very centrist or very accepting of a return to status quo and just being there. I'm not saying that he is beyond reproach when it comes to his actions. I'm saying that just there is a level that does go too far in that it doesn't help. Like if anything, it causes more of an issue. What Endernax? What?
Like, and all I'm gonna say, buddy, is that all of these leftists, and I'm not on board with them. I didn't vote for Joe Biden. Okay, so listen. They sat here and they said to themselves, a lot of them, Vosh included, props where it goes. They sat there for how many months and pretended to love Joe Biden. And then he's elected and they're like, okay, we can finally go back to hating him. And then you're like, well, I don't think that it's okay that you go back to hate. Shut up. Shut up.
That's exactly it. No, of course don't go back to hating him. The whole reason. No. You don't fucking say you support the dude. And then when he gets elected, it's like, all right, you're a fucking twat.
Yes, you do, actually.
No, the same reason that it's a problem that we have an issue. Shut up. The same reason that we needed them to support him so he could get elected is the same reason we need them to be mildly supportive of him. Again, not uncritical, but mildly supportive and a little more fucking rational in their actions. Because
never
not
put up any legitimate opposition.
Fuck up.
Ender.
The whole point.
If you're just gonna, okay. Well, I'm not gonna nice this. Don't just make noises if somebody's trying to make a point. Okay, I would like to hear the point instead of noises.
Is Lycan just gonna say pushing them to the left? Because that's obviously not gonna happen.
No, Lycan's gonna say, I'm gonna Vada Kedavra the shit out of you if you don't shut the fuck up. The point is,
I thought you were doing the Sith thing. Okay.
No. I used to have a white one of these, but they're kind of out of vogue right now. No, all right. Anyway,
are you wearing that while you're also lurking on Lauren Bobart's Twitter page? Because you brought her up twice so far this Hippy Dippy. I'm just thinking maybe there's a crush there or something.
Maybe. I don't know. If you go to my Twitter, it does.
We could put her in prison for causing an erection.
It's a hate crush, but I mean, she is gorgeous. But regardless,
well,
the point I'm making is this: it's not like people like to jump down this path of anyone being a little bit tone policey is just being a prick, rather than realizing that tone actually impacts the people that are on the fringe or on certain sides that you need to bring over to your side, or even those on your side can be impacted by your tone. So tone is important, and being rational in your criticism is important. And there is a huge difference, a very clear line, like a fucking street-sized line between being nitpicky about people saying mean things and their tone sucking versus, hey, if you discuss it this way and you don't handle your criticism in a rational manner, you are going to cause harm to the things that we want. And just because a policy isn't as progressive as the farthest left wants it, doesn't mean that it's not a good policy. Those kind of discussions are important, and they're not.
Would you agree that
detracting.
the far left is growing, and that you're going to have to? Unfortunately, Biden's not going to do it, but you're going to have to move into some of these policies. And when Biden doesn't do that, what do you expect these people to do?
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Like you got to go on your little diatribe. I'm like, oh, okay, nitpicky. Like, these people are communist, socialist, syndicalists. Yeah. Their entire ideology is nitpicky, my friend. There is no alignment on with their policy and what they would like to implement. Sure, you could argue for pragmatic reform, and a lot of the more intelligent ones will listen and say, yeah, you know what, that makes sense to me. But you're sitting here like, well, you can't be mean to Biden after he gets elected. Are you kidding me?
Said that.
Yes.
I didn't say you can't criticize him. I didn't say that.
I said mean. I didn't say criticize. I said mean. And I'm gonna be honest. Being overly critical is being mean, which is what you were criticizing. Was the overcritical nature of the left? No, let them be overcritical. But it's so dumb.
It's important to keep. I mean, it's important to keep presidents of either party their feet on the fire at all times. Never ever giving up. And this is, I think, where Ben would agree. That's why Obama, Bush, and a lot of these other presidents have got away with it, because we've just gone, oh, well, they're our president. And listen, I respect Biden. He's our president. But that doesn't mean I don't have a right to criticize him. You know, it's the thing you have to do. You have to keep the feet to the fire. Otherwise, it's going to go back to what we've had in the past. Hopefully Ben would agree with that. That's what's been the problem in this country, is people are not being vocal enough, unified enough with a message of what their presidents need to do.
There is a difference between holding someone's feet to the fire.
I was hoping to get Ben in here because
actually, so I did want to ask a question. So, like, you're talking about the most extreme left wing policies as opposed to incremental reform. How about Medicare for all? You know, that all of us should have, all the rest of us here should have what Lance already has. And you know, that we should, that if we get sick, we should be able to go to the doctor without anybody charging us for it, you know, without worrying that if we lose our jobs, you know, we'll lose our health insurance, without some people getting to go see doctors, other people don't, you know, because they don't take Medicaid, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem like a really extreme, you know, communist thing to me. That seems like that's a baseline. Again, you know, Canada is not a socialist utopia. They've had that for decades. So you agree with that?
Yeah. So my thing is this.
Yeah, so Biden said he would veto that.
Yeah. So here's where I disagree with that's what I want. Like, I want that. I think it should happen. Here's I think maybe a good example of this. Hopefully I articulate it right. Loyal was talking about holding someone's feet to the fire, and I think you should. And I think, to me, holding the feet to the fire is educating people on why it's not a fucking bad policy, why our country can't afford it, how it's actually a sign of economic strength and caring for our people that we implement a policy like Medicare for all. That's and continuing to push our peers, educate people, and then calling our goddamn congressman and saying, hey, fucking, we want this, right? But the force the vote thing is not putting someone's feet to the fire. The force the vote thing is dumping coals on those feet, and you're going to see a knee-jerk reaction where people get the fuck away from it, because the reality is it's highly unpopular for a decent portion of the country. There aren't people that are needing to be forced to vote and then highlighted as people that are against it because they're just assholes who are in office. No, they represent a constituency that we want them to have Medicare for all. They don't fully understand why we can do this, but if we force them and we're not understanding of that part of the political process, I think it's kind of just ignorant of reality.
But it doesn't matter.
Wait. Force the vote. Like, force the vote was about, you know, putting coals maybe on AOC's feet for not doing the specific tactic. I was actually critical of that. I was never a force the vote guy, but we're not talking about that, right? We're talking about Joe Biden. So the force the vote people's criticism of AOC was that she wasn't doing this like one specific tactic to, you know, to put it forward. But even though she was a hardcore Medicare for all supporter,
or any tactic,
this is about criticizing Joe Biden, who has been openly opposed to it, right? It's not a matter of doing it quickly.
Yeah, no, that's fair criticism. Absolutely, yeah.
The first 100 days. Yeah. I mean, he just says he's against it.
Yeah, no, I'm totally there is no part of me that has any issue with people saying, "Hey, Joe, this is fucking stupid. Do the policy. Like, change your view on it." Like, yeah, that's I assume, like, to me, that's kind of like fence sitting. I believe that Joe Biden probably behind the scenes is for it and had to have that rhetoric. You don't think so?
Not at all.
Definitely don't
Not
think
at
so.
all.
These
No.
people stand for nothing. What do you?
I'm
you
sorry,
think- you-
like,
God,
I'm sorry.
it's so-
I'm sorry that you can look, and that's why when guys like me have brought up his history, I brought it up as an example of like what he's been for, and that's why I always say I'm a Republican that's for universal health care in some form. I disagree with the left and the right, but let's have this discussion. The problem is people like Joe Biden don't even want to have the discussion. It's people like me and Ben that are willing to, hey, let's get together, let's have a discussion, and then guys like Joe Biden, when we pass off the ball, that's going to be the decider. He says, "Fuck you." He doesn't even give it a shot.
You're going to take health insurance away from everybody. That's what Joe Biden would say. While you two were having a productive conversation about adopting a, I don't know, style universal healthcare model or some shit, which would be infinitely better than what we have now. But like nobody can have that conversation because the well has been poisoned by people who use rhetoric in a way to damage anybody with populist sentiment. They don't want you to gain power. They do not want you to implement your policies. And you will sit here and try to rationalize out about why Joe Biden secretly supports Medicare for all behind closed doors. But it's not true. It's not true. You're lying to yourself.
I made one offhand comment that I said I believe he supports it behind the scenes. That's it. I was not in any way, shape, or form the crux of the argument. I think he focused a little much.
No,
too much.
it's fine. That's Endermax.
That.
That's just Endermax for you. But
I agree with you, Ben. I think there's nothing wrong with people pressuring him for that. That to me doesn't fall under the category of irrational criticism.
Okay, now I want to bring it over to Serfs because they actually raised their hand a while ago, and I wanted to make sure the attention was brought to whatever they wanted to say.
Yeah, no, two quick things. One for this is for Loyal Logic. I liked hearing what you said about climate change and that you're taking personal responsibility, and I agree that's something more
as much
people
as
should
I
talk
can
about. Just for like a rare facts thing, 70% of CO2 emissions are created by 100 companies, 100 corporations. So the overwhelming onus is on corporations. They're the ones like basically contributing to the majority of this problem.
But Lance, I would come back at you and say though those corporations are producing products to the consumers, so there is some responsibility for us.
They are definitely producing some products for the consumers. They also have incentivization under our current system, our economic system, to overproduce. Right now, we produce twice as much food than we consume, for example.
But it's a balance, though, Lance.
It's not.
It's a
That's
balance
a huge
between
problem.
the two.
That twice as much food, that raw thing, twice as much food we produce than we consume as people. That means we're wasting half the shit we make, which means the process of making all that, which includes meat, something that you've foregone, is actually destroying the environment. So we have to fix that. That's something fundamental. That it doesn't matter how much vegetarians we all become, that machine.
But they're not going to produce meat just to throw it away. I mean, there's a consumer out there, and my whole point about there's a balance.
Oh yes,
there's a
there's
a balance between the two that you can find the sweet spot. But like Endermax said, I'm sorry, I came to that point a couple of years ago. We're fucked, and it's sad, but it just is what it is. And I hope one day maybe people get it together and unite behind the cause of actually caring about the environment. But it's not going to get there because we're so fucking divided. But we're just not willing to even have a real discussion. We're praising Biden over doing the Paris. It's just like when it doesn't do anything.
The reason I can't like have that line of logic, that to me, I don't know if it's nihilism in your case or it's just basically like we're fucked idea, but like I'd want to go down swinging then, because it's either game over or it's we keep fighting until the bitter end.
I agree with that, and I think you're right to do that. I think you're right, but also I just my problem is, Lance, when I talk about the personal responsibility and things I do, like I'm not great, obviously I'm not perfect, but I just talk about the little things I do. Like I haven't ate fish. I haven't ate fish in almost 14 years. Little things like this. Good. But but when I get the response from both the left and the right, they act like that's an insane thing. It's like, well, no. How about you just cut back a little bit? Cut back on this. Cut back on that. I mean, it makes a difference. But if we don't have enough people in the country and in the world, it's not just here. Because here's the thing: if from 2005 to up to 2018, we've cut CO2 emissions by 12%. So, I mean, that's not, oh my God, but it's still something, but we need it to be more over time, obviously. But how much more can we really do? I don't see it coming anytime soon. Sorry.
We lowered it, I think 8% this year, but every year prior to that, and that was because of COVID, we like stopped traveling.
Oh yeah, I'm not counting last year.
Yeah, but every year prior to that, it was going up and up and up. We
2019 it went down 3%. I mean, I just looked at the EPA website. I mean, from 2005 to 2000, I can pull it right up again. 2005 to 2018, it went down 12%. I mean that's from EPA, and I would say, hey, that's not enough. It's good, but it's not enough. But We need to maybe focus on the things we're doing good, what we need to do better. But the problem is we're not having this discussion. It's all corporations instead of a balance between a healthy discussion between what do we need to do personally, what do the corporations need to do, what does the government need to do. I mean, it's like it's going to keep turning, Lance. That's the problem, because we keep pushing one button, corporations. And then on the flip side, yeah, private corporations can do what they want. I mean, it's so funny to me. I hear this rhetoric. I'm like, no, they can't do what they want. That's a lie. That's a fucking meme that was spread recently. They have some accountability. Always corporations have accountability. But unfortunately, it's just going to keep the cause and keep turning. But I hope you're right. Go down swinging, and hopefully there's a Hail Mary throw at the last minute. But I just don't see it happening.
The last thing I just wanted to quickly say to Lycan, by the way, I know you're concerned about people criticizing Biden. One of the reasons that Ben was bringing that up is that I think a lot of people do this thing, and it's a really shitty thing to do, where they'll take people like Lecture Fan and Loyal Logic, and I don't know what Ender Next is, I can't figure it out. But anyways, they'll take conservatives, and they'll say, like, 70 million Americans who voted for Trump, they're all racists, they're all transphobes, they're all homophobes or something. That's the reason they're voting for Trump, because they actually hate like minorities, and it's reasons like that, right? They're experiencing the same thing, the same alienation, the same basically stagnant wages like every other American has since the 70s, while the cost of living has grown exponentially, right? The cost of going to the hospital has grown a ton. The cost of home ownership has grown a ton. Because of that, they're all feeling that same crunch, and they've got people like Trump who are telling them, well, it's immigrants who are doing this to you, right? It's this that's doing this to you, instead of isolating the actual causes of that.
Okay.
Which is why someone like Ben has to go, someone like, the current president has to go way further in order to stop these things from happening, instead of continuously creating these
or willing to have the discussions. That's the thing. At least willing to have the discussions. That's my criticism with Biden, always has been. He's a man that has been consistently not been willing to have the discussions on universal health care. It's been shown throughout his reign of 40 plus years.
Okay, so I wanted to get to some people who haven't talked much yet. And I saw you raise your hand. Don't worry, I've written your name down. If you raise your hand, if you raise it for like 20 seconds, by then I've already written it down. I'll usually raise the notebook to show you that I've written your name down. So I'm going to go down this list of people who haven't talked yet, and I'm going to start with CTV.
Well, this has been one of those head stomper conversations, to be sure, right? Being caught up here out of the blue, I think that the Keystone Pipeline hasn't been talked much about. I feel like that with regard to how that's going to be affecting not only the jobs that are going to be lost, but the fact that that's going to affect gas prices for all Americans, right? So if the Democrats' plan right off the bat is to try to help the American people, they shouldn't be trying to start taking away something that was already previously established by the government itself, right? Because the government is not supposed to be completely partisan, right? It's supposed to be for the people. And this was put in place by the government as a project to help the people and to help with gas prices and industry. And the removal of it is going to see a cost in that, right? So it's kind of one of those where if your entire plan is just to create more government subsidies, right, to make people dependent on the system, instead of setting up the market in such a way to where it allows people to be able to earn money and to spend it as they see fit without government subsidy, then I kind of feel like you're missing the point as far as what the use of government should be.
Yeah, but I would say CTV, though, like Lecture Fan said, this will be fought out in court. There was agreement signed. So I think the Keystone Pipeline, as much as I do have some disagreements with it, but I think it's going to be built because these agreements were signed, funds were allocated, and there's nothing they can do. I mean, unless they want to pay out more billions of dollars back to these companies, and I'm fine with that too, because then they'll have to pay out the union contracts.
Right, but as I looked at the executive orders, I mean, there were a few different things that got signed in there, but that was the one that I felt like hit home the most, and that's why I wanted to make sure that it at least got brought up again, since we kind of got to a point where all of these other points had already concluded. So
Okay.
that's why.
Okay, I want to bring it over to Lecture Fan, who hasn't gotten to talk much, in case he wants. You can pass if you don't want to talk.
No, my comment on what we just witnessed is that We are sitting here debating the most extreme of the extreme left positions that have no chance of passing and no chance of happening, and it's totally disconnected from reality. I mean, Medicare for all is not happening. Criticizing Joe Biden because he doesn't like Medicare for all is so just radical and disconnected from reality that has nothing to do with what's going on in American politics right now. The American people do not want the quality of our healthcare to go way down. We don't want our taxes to go way up. We do not want this garbage. And, the serfs talking about long-term problems in our economy. Yeah, we have had, since the 70s, stagnant wages, for example. And you know why? It's because we've had never-ending growth of the federal government. The size and scope of the federal government
Excuse me a
has
second.
gone nothing but up.
1 second. The serfs were unmuted on Whereby, so we could hear his family. So we're gonna go back to you, Lecter. I'm sorry, I had to mute him.
I can still hear it, but that's all right.
Oh, okay.
No,
1 second. I can turn it off. Oh, there we go.
No, that was my main point. I thought this whole discussion about Medicare for all was just so disconnected from.
I think you're wrong.
One of the issues that I don't.
Reality. That doesn't say things about American democracy because polls consistently.
You're not going to let him make the point.
I would like to hear the end of his point.
If most people actually supported these Bernie Sanders type policies, Bernie Sanders wouldn't have gotten absolutely destroyed in the primary.
Yeah,
and
but
people
lecture
like Joe
fan.
Biden wouldn't hate the policies, and a lot of Democrats wouldn't be opposed to it because they don't want to lose because they're in swing districts.
Yeah,
it's
but
not happening.
But
It's not
fan,
happening.
but lecture fan, as a Republican, I have to tell you, the discussions are being had. There are people on the left and right that do want our healthcare system to change. That's why I said I'm against Medicare.
Of course,
well,
our
listen,
healthcare system
let me finish.
is
Let
a
me finish.
disaster because
Let
of
me
the federal
finish.
government involvement.
I know. Let me finish. There has to be some discussion. Like I said, I'm against Medicare for all, but I'm for universal healthcare because there has to be some. Now, here's the thing: universal healthcare doesn't mean free. It can mean universally obtainable, affordable. Do we need to have some type of system that's going to figure out what the hell's going on? Because as we get more desperate, people are going to go to the extreme of the left because they're offering, in desperation, people are going to go to the far left. You can say all you want, but that's what's going to happen, lecture. So we as Republicans need to get on the modern times of talking about reform in the Medicare system, the healthcare system.
I never said anything. I never said anything inconsistent with that.
Okay.
I totally agree. Our healthcare system is all kinds of effed up. You know why it's all kinds of effed up? Because of too much federal government involvement. Why don't you go back and look at the actual history? Go back and actually look at the history of when our healthcare started to just absolutely get destroyed in terms of its cost, its skyrocketing cost, and all sorts of other problems. That began when the federal government started getting involved with our healthcare system. Plain and simple.
I want to say Ben was trying to respond earlier, so I want to throw it over to Ben.
Yeah, so LCTR fan is doing the statistical equivalent of asserting that the Earth is flat. There is poll after poll after poll after poll showing that the majority of Americans support Medicare for all. Maybe you wish they didn't. Maybe you think they're wrong, but you can't say that they don't support it. And saying that Bernie Sanders would have won the Democratic primaries as if that was the issue, as if that's what Democratic voters, because if that's your argument, then you have to think even most Democratic voters are against it, even though exit poll after exit poll after exit poll in the various states that Biden won shows that most did support it. Which
then why did they vote?
That's not what they're voting on.
Okay,
and
then why?
And that is because they thought that he was a better chance to beat Donald Trump. Now, as far as this claim that all the problems with the American healthcare system are because of government involvement, the big issue with that is then you have to explain how it is that in World Health Organization rankings, in life expectancy, in infant mortality, in overall mortality amenable to healthcare, which is just statistics speak for number of people who die who wouldn't have died given timely medical interventions. Lance's country is creaming ours. The UK is creaming ours. All of these countries that have more government involvement in the healthcare system than the United States does, which, by the way, would be pretty much every country in the industrialized world, are all doing better than us in most of these metrics. So I don't see how you could possibly reconcile that with the claim that government involvement in healthcare is the big problem.
There's more factors than just one factor.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think he meant like what the government is doing. I don't think he meant all government involvement. Correct, lecture fan?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of factors that go into all those different statistics. It's the same thing Democrats do with coronavirus. They think the only factor Democrats will do the same exact thing with coronavirus, where they say the only factor that controls the number of coronavirus cases is what the government does, as if government is God and like government's the only factor. And it's like, hold on, this is a very complicated subject, whether
Obesity
you're
is
talking
a
about
good
medical
one.
issues or you're talking about COVID. There's a lot more factors than just what does the government do. Like the obsession with government, government controls everything is out of control.
Trust me, Lance could testify to this. Canadians are not a lot healthier in their lifestyle than Americans.
Wait, but Europeans are. Europeans have half the obesity rate.
The quality of service is garbage.
What about? So hold on though. If that's your explanation, then you're going to have trouble explaining why Canadians live longer than us, have lower infant mortality, have better healthcare, have mortality amenable to healthcare. You're going to have trouble explaining why British people have all of those things.
I think I could probably square that one away pretty good. I think I could probably square that one away pretty well, right? It all comes down to the education system and the consumerism the kids are being taught in this school as they're coming up, as well as the way the whole society is based around consumerism.
Wait, I thought you were going to say strap on. I was thinking he's going to say strap on.
The obesity.
Wait. Okay, sorry. There was 4 people talking at the same time. So everybody, we're going to beep this for a second. And I was curious in hearing Endernax clarify his position. And then we're going to go to Book and Lycan, because Lycan rose his hand a while ago. I'm sorry, Lycan, it's taking you so long.
Yeah.
Endernax.
So we know that obesity rates, right, directly correlate to like multiple years lost in your lifespan. Like at a certain point, severely obese people lose like 5 years on their life, something absurd. Obese people lose like a year or 2, dependent on how obese they are. Canada is, I think the rate is like 25, 26%. In the United States, the newest estimates are like 50-some% of people. If you look up Canadian obesity rate.
Yep.
What?
Some is 70%.
Yeah, well, this is obviously contributing to our lower life expectancy, as well as suicides, deaths of despair. These all come together. Now, I am for universal healthcare. I'm on board with the whole idea. The difference, there is a nuanced take of there's other factors in play. Like America is literally the fattest country on the planet. So.
Okay, next is going to be Booksmart, who hasn't talked
It's 63%. I just looked it up. Sorry for interrupting.
Wait,
look
up the rate. Look up the rate, not the
obesity rate.
Right. So 1 second. I will link you the source, because this is Google has a habit.
Statistics Canada, 63% of Canadians are considered.
I do want to just point out that infant mortality is going to be something that you're going to have a really hard time hand waving away with all of these evasive tactics, because trust me, the lifestyle of Canadian babies and the lifestyle of American babies is pretty much the same. They just
it's not.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a second here. Can everybody hear me? Does anybody here have registered hearing problems of any sort?
No, sir.
Okay, so everybody can hear me. Nobody has registered hearing problems. Then nobody should have any problem. Okay, Loyal Logic, you have registered hearing problems. Okay, well then, Loyal, you send me a DM and I will get you specially Dylan Burns TV branded headphones that will be able to be 10 times louder to shout that into your ears. Okay, but if everybody else can hear me, then I want to make sure that when I speak up, everybody shuts it down. Because I have some sort of order I want to keep here, and there's people I want to get to on the list who have been waiting very patiently. So next I want to get to Booksmarts, who has been talking to chat, posting many memes, laughing around, being a little hooligan, but he has now to contribute to the conversation. He needs to now justify his existence on my panel.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Loyal Logic has some disabilities that he needs help with, so I don't know why he's so opposed to this stuff. Like, I hear a lot of talk about how these government programs are inefficient. We need to take money out of this, that, and the other thing. I feel like we should we're behind the curve as a country in terms of our governmental processes and organizations. They seem to be inefficient and ineffective. I don't think the solution to that is to take more responsibility away from the government. I think it's to make sure that the government figures out a way to implement what countries across the world seem to be able to do. That's my
I guess
take.
he missed a point where I said I'm for universal health care, and so
I feel like I have to give lecture a period to respond there, since that was pretty pointed.
Well, he was addressed to me, but
well,
Yeah, no, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for universal health care. I'm for a balance between personal responsibility, government intervention, and corporations having accountability. And if you think somehow that you don't have any responsibility at all in your lifestyle and how you infect the environment, you're fucking stupid. You need to understand, if I take toxic waste or I take motor oil and I dump it in a drain and I just keep doing it, oh, well, you have an effect. So you have to understand, everybody has some type of personal responsibility. That doesn't absolve the government of doing anything, but there's a balance. And that's the fucking problem, is there's one side, government needs to do it. Fuck, I don't need to do shit. I can live however I want. And then there's the other side. And then there's people like me in the middle that are trying to say, hey, well, why don't we just balance things, have a discussion, figure this out?
Okay.
I hold on. I will say
Sure.
before I forgot what I was going to say, but I was going to say I think it's hilarious that Booksmarts actually admits that government efficient and ineffective, which is kind of my point. But he says the government's inefficient, but then his solution is even more of it. That was not a very compelling argument.
Lycan, you were next on the list. You've been waiting very patient for a while. I will put Ben Burgis down, and Ender, you're also on the list. Don't worry.
Wait,
Please
can
don't
I not
put it-
respond to Lecture Fan?
Sure, you can respond to Lecture Fan before Lycan goes.
Yeah, Lecture Fan. Have you ever done any kind of like sports or anything like that?
She said, "Hey, a response, not a
Yeah.
question."
Well, if you're policing things, then there was a
I'm
mod
just
switch.
asking. I'm
I-
asking you a question.
Well,
I don't know if calling him the R word, by the way, or inferring that he was disabled was necessarily the way to go with.
I didn't call him the R word, nor did
Oh,
I
I'm
mean
sorry,
it in
you-
that
you
way.
implied
He
that he
said he
had a
couldn't
disability.
hear. That
So
was
you
the
just
joke.
detracted from the
Jesus.
conversation.
All right.
Okay.
So
Wait,
so with
why does it
Lecture
ma-
Fan, I think the way that we improve upon things is similar to sport. If you're not good at the thing, you need better practice. Yeah, we need better institutions and we need to hold them accountable. We need to figure out a way to improve our ability to like get social services out to people. I think giving up, putting your hands up in the air and saying there's no way to improve this isn't the way to go about doing that.
okay. Next is Ender. Wait, no, it was Lycan. Sorry, Lycan.
No, that's all good. Real quick, I want to say that this is a little off topic, but I think Ben had a calming effect because after his cocaine discussion comment, for the most part, other than one little blow up, I think we've all chilled the fuck out quite a bit. And real
Good
quick,
for the
Lance,
memes.
if I could ask you, can you
Yeah,
repeat what you said earlier? Because I wanted to respond to it and I just didn't capture it fully.
About Joe Biden?
About my comments, I think you said.
Yeah, just in reference to Joe Biden, that he has to. The reason Ben and maybe a lot of other leftists are wanting to push up against him is because you control the House, the Senate, and the presidency now, so you're definitely like the go-to. But because the things that led to Donald Trump, like Donald Trump wasn't the cause of any of those conditions. They existed before him, and as long as there's like such growing inequity in the United States, people will look for straw men, right? They'll look for the other. Basically, it's going to be immigrants sometimes, right? Maybe they're going to be vilified or something else of that nature. When at the end of the day, the people who are voting for Donald Trump, they're voting out of a lot of the same fears. Like most Americans want the same things, right? They want like to
Okay,
look after
yep.
their family, security, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I was going to.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess to address that real quick, I agree with you, and I think it's just a matter of our people pointed to that, their people pointed to that, and people follow their leadership. Obviously, people on here are going to have a disagreement about which that is the actual problem, right? But I wanted to take just a moment real quick because I was discussing some things with your chat, Serfs, and seeing some comments Dylan's chat made, and I want to clarify my opinion when it comes to that criticism. I think the Biden example that Ben brought up with regards to Medicare for all is what illustrates it really well. So I want to real quick, pressuring Biden, something I'm entirely in favor for. The force the vote performative stunt is not something I'm in favor for, especially when it's people who have massive platforms. Because, for instance, that force the vote thing got a lot of traction, got a lot of support from people, and that fed the rhetoric of the fucking libs and their inaction or their inability to do anything meaningful for the country. And I think that is kind of irresponsible for him to have done and for people to engage with that. So like if you see my shit on Twitter, I'm a nobody on Twitter, but at least when I attack someone like Boebert or Tim Pool or something like that, there's something substantive to it. It's you're contributing to this problem through this type of commentary, through this type of irrational argumentation, through that type of platforming a bad person or a bad faith actor, or just going after a dunk versus an actual meaningful point. And I think a lot of people get sucked into it, especially with these online massive platforms. They get sucked into the thrill and excitement and the joy of having their side, their following, and then making that kind of shit fucking commentary that does no actual good.
But like, and I want to say the reason is because our leaders are not having these substantive discussions. They fall to the people like Jimmy Dore, because when they look to their leadership, like Jimmy Dore did point out, they're not saying we're going to strategize, we're going to figure this out. So they will always go to people that are talking about it. That's the problem. And I'll go back to it again. As long as the cog keeps turning and our leaders on both sides are not coming together, talking about these issues, figuring them out, it's going to keep happening, and you're going to get more extreme people. I mean, Jimmy Dore's nothing compared to what could come down the line. Jimmy Dore's like, he's nothing. He's a butterfly compared to what will happen in the future if Joe Biden doesn't do what he said he's going to do.
Yeah, I actually very much agree with you there. I think that they want to hear people talking about that. And so when they see that commentary, like Sean Vids retweeted this person, someone said some comment about wanting to see Amy Poehler reenact her love for Joe Biden from some clip from Parks and Rec. And some rando retweets it and says, I want healthcare. And it's like, dude, are you saying you can't fucking have any sort of commentary? Like, no shit, you want healthcare. I want Medicare for all. But that doesn't mean that anyone on the left who makes a comment about anything but healthcare, and then this Jita chick, I'm sorry, I don't mean chick in a sexist way. I mean chick because I use dude and chick. So I would have said dude if it was a dude. This Jita person from Motherboard jumps in and says, yeah, that actually is how it works. And then I look at that person's feed and they're literally tweeting about fashion during the fucking inauguration. So yeah, that kind of performative bullshit, I don't think it's fucking good. And then getting real fucking upset when people call you out on it. That's the kind of
but a majority of
with
people
a powerful
that are
platform.
I know, but a majority of people just want to have the discussion. And I even think I disagree with Lecture Fan on it. I do think there's a lot of Republicans that are starting to come around to the idea like something has to be done. And I just think that I hope you're not using the same excuse in a year when nothing's been done about healthcare. And hopefully you go, holy shit, we should have been calling for it. We should have been.
I'm all for calling for it.
Hold on. I think there's a lot to be done to fix.
No,
our
that's what I'm saying.
System. Like, where you're going wrong, Loyal Logic, is you think that the Republicans and the conservatives, if they don't support socialized healthcare, then they don't believe in fixing it at all. Or I believe in actually very substantial reforms to our healthcare system to really fix it. So this idea that you either support socialism or you support the current system is totally a false.
But Trump came in, Lecture Fan. Trump came in saying he was going to appeal and replace, and he didn't replace.
I gotta grab this Endernex.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's a lot of people who enable this type of like liberal elitism, or perhaps you could call it like neocon elitism on the right, where they look at these populists who are like, you know, they look at these populists with contempt. They see like, oh, this is what they're pushing for. This is what they want. Like, oh, the silly peasantry. You don't know what you want. You should vote for me. I'll get you into more foreign wars and give you slow, moderate progress. Well, okay, it's that type of attitude which is going to result in not the Twitter lefty who you're complaining about, which is the vast minority of the people who are voting for populist candidates. In fact, they're basically irrelevant when it comes to a populist voting bloc because they're a percentage of a percentage. They're on the internet and they're on Twitter and they're complaining and they're leftists. Like, who cares about that person? Okay, it doesn't matter. But what you will see over time is as you disregard these people, as you continually complain about, oh my goodness, Jimmy Dore was mean on Twitter to AOC. Okay, these people aren't being delivered anything. There's no deliverables. So what happens? Well, they start thinking to themselves, why does everybody keep screwing me over? All I wanted was to like not go bankrupt because my kid got COVID or some shit. Okay. And then they start voting for people who are more and more radical, who are more outside the box. It's not even like a question. This happens every single fucking time. Needs aren't being met in a population group. Anyways, I did want to take a step back and say that Lance, the obesity numbers for Canada, when you Google them, is overweight and obese. So if you include that for America, it's 75%. But if you just look at just straight obesity, which is the more harmful metric, being overweight doesn't actually result in you losing that much of your lifespan, like at all. I don't even think there's any studies on that. But I know obesity itself does directly correlate to you losing 1 or 2 years of your life.
Wait,
so that was the metric.
That's the reason there's a stark difference between America.
No, I'm saying that might be one, right? you're looking at like this is a health cause like at the beginning. So in order to change this in the United States, you need like health programs, healthy school lunches. I'm much more of a like I'm only bringing this up because
an overwhelming amount of Americans who don't even have access to healthcare. That makes
I know. I
agree.
agree.
A monstrous one in this case.
Wait. I do agree with that take, and that's why I support universal healthcare personally. But I'm more of like a whole life type of guy. Like, how do we figure out all of these different solutions? Like, do we implement a sugar tax? What do we do to fast food companies? Do we penalize them, et cetera, et cetera?
I'm gonna do something here, and I'm saying we're done talking about healthcare because these are not even about the executive orders. Okay, so
I got a good meme.
We're no longer talking about. Yeah, Ben, you're next. I will throw it to you, but. We will no longer talk about healthcare anymore during this discussion whatsoever.
Okay, but when I raised my hand a while ago, it was to respond to that.
Can you slide the end of it back into one of the executive order topics?
Sure.
Thank you.
I forgot the topic.
So I think so the United States, I just looked it up, is 38th in the world, and that the gap between where the United States is with overall life expectancy versus other countries, and where the United States is with obesity vis-a-vis other countries, doesn't come anywhere close to explaining the life expectancy gap. There are lots. There are lots of other countries that that are not doing better off there, that are doing better off in life expectancy. So I don't think that you can explain it that way. You look at other health factors. More Canadians smoke than Americans. More British people smoke than Americans. You can go down the line with a lot of this stuff. The lifestylist explanations do not go as far as you think they do, and I think that even if they did, right, they don't. But even if they did have anything like the explanatory value that you're suggesting, especially I think infant mortality is a case that that makes it particularly ridiculous to say that it's all about obesity. But even if they did, if you think like once you start looking at what actually happens, the overall health effects of having Medicare for all or National Health Service versus having a more marketized system that like you have in the United States, that if you start to say, oh, well, it's all these other things and who knows, and really it's a big mystery and there's so many other factors that, who's to say, I think that that's a lot more than the evidence will support. And I'd also point out that having, if it was true, at the very least, it can't be doing so. Having Medicare for all or national health, national health systems in places like Canada, the UK, and various European countries. If the bad effects are so minor that they're being so totally masked by all these other factors that it superficially looks like you have way better health outcomes, then the bad effects cannot be that bad. And given all of the other obvious good effects of not having employers be able to hold that over people's heads, that that if you quit your job, you'll lose your health insurance, not having people stay in bad marriages because they're worried about losing their spousal health insurance, not having people who die because their GoFundMes for their insulin haven't been funded, which absolutely happens, that all of those seem like massive goods that would be done by having Medicare for all. And if there is some sort of negative health outcome, it sure must be masked. And as far as government inefficiencies go, we can actually compare Medicare and Medicaid and how much they have to spend on overhead versus any private health insurance company. So I think that narrative doesn't pan out. To tie it back to Biden's executive orders, I would once again say that what he could have done, but didn't do, is invoke Section 1881A of the Social Security Act on the argument that which says that if you have an environmental exposure, you can make people eligible for Medicare if they've been exposed to it. You could say that COVID counts as such an environmental exposure. I don't know if that theory would hold out, would survive the legal challenges or not. But I do know that Joe Biden tried to give everybody health care would be a hell of a lot stronger opening case for the 2022 elections than anything that I'm at all confident that Joe Biden would do, given executive orders that in almost all cases, at best, restored the pre-Trump status quo.
The United States already has health care for poor people. It's called Medicare. Everybody has access to health care in the United States.
You mean Medicaid,
Can
but
we,
also
we're actually
you
done.
guys,
I
we're
am
done,
banning
we're done.
healthcare. The next person who says healthcare is getting booted from the panel. Okay. I did not give people instructions to study up on healthcare before coming here. I gave people the topics pretty well beforehand that it was going to be his executive orders. So we're going to talk about his executive orders and what he could have done in executive order form. Now, I do think it is pretty cheeky that, Ben, you were able to find a way that brought us back to healthcare in executive order form. But we're done talking about healthcare in any capacity. This is one aspect of the entirety of the U.S. political system is healthcare. We're now going to do executive orders. The next person to say healthcare will be muted for the remainder of the panel, okay? So, no more healthcare. It is now executive orders. We barely have any time left to even talk about it. Okay, executive orders. CTV.
I just wanted to say welfare. That was it.
Jesus.
Yep, we do have
Breathtaking.
welfare.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to say on executive orders?
I just want to say, I mean, I think people are still forgetting that these are going to be a lot of these are going to be reversed if we get a Republican leadership. So I would have liked to see Biden actually have legislation ready on to propose. And that really does show you that I don't think he is in the first year, nothing's going to be done. So it's sad. And I wish more of his executive orders were actually more bipartisan, but that's not the case. And we'll see how it goes. And I think some of them are going to be challenged in a court like the pipeline.
Can someone who knows more about this than me comment on this? Can you basically end the child prisons through executive orders, or is that something that has to go through Congress?
They're not going to do that. That would have to be state by state. I mean, each detention centers, I don't think they're federally, not every single one's funded by federal dollars, if I'm correct, right?
Aren't they
But
ICE facilities?
Yeah, the ICE facilities that would make them federal.
Oh, the
federal
ICE
oversight,
facility. I
wouldn't
thought you said youth, like detention centers for the youth. I didn't.
No,
they?
he's talking about
no.
kids in
No,
cages shit.
Yeah, the kids in cages.
Yeah, you could end that with executive order. Yes, you could. To my understanding, you can abolish an entire fucking federal entity. I don't think the Department of Homeland Security was created through Congress, right? Like, I think
no, it
just-
actually was. It was the
Yes, it
Homeland
was.
Security Act.
Okay, never mind. I'm wrong.
Well,
So I think actually creating I certainly with Homeland Security, that's a cabinet level agency. So I don't think you could get rid of that. I think you could order ICE to stop doing many things it's doing, and he also since a lot of this is about people being held on various charges, immigration offenses. I think that he could use his pardon power to do a lot of that. Also, since since we're not talking about that other subject, on the subject of the Keystone Pipeline, I would point out that actual experts don't seem to think that's going to be much of a direct relationship with gas prices, and that even if there are several thousand jobs, nothing like the figure that we heard earlier for people, those are temporary construction jobs. The amount of actual permanent jobs associated with the Keystone Pipeline is my understanding. I mean, once that's all done, we're talking about like a few dozen people could run that thing.
okay, it looks like everybody's basically puckered out of this conversation. I'm happy we got to do the Medicare for All debate today. We're going to now move on to the last one, which was basically Trump's last thing he did in office, which was his pardons. Sadly, our boy Joe Exotic did not get it. He was apparently too gay for it, if I remember what the statement was. But there was other people that was pardoned. So if anybody has any comments on Trump's pardons, we're going to go around the room, do intros, try to make them as short as physically possible. Like literally like, yeah, I think they're good. This is why blank. No, I think they're bad. Blank. As short as possible so we have enough time to discuss them. I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner with Lycan.
Hi. Yes, I pass.
Hey, Ben.
Should have pardoned Leonard Peltier.
Okay. CTV.
Probably should have pardoned Edward Snowden and Julian Assange if he was going to remain philosophically consistent. But whenever you're leaving, and instead of trying to leave like an alpha, you're going to leave completely like an omega and have your tail tucked between your legs. So there you go.
Not a shaman wolf.
Yeah.
Serfs TV.
I second that. He should have pardoned Snowden and Assange. And the fact that he didn't pardon Rudy Giuliani, even though I know he's being investigated, he hasn't been charged, is absolutely hilarious to me because Rudy gave him everything. He gave him everything and got nothing in return. So enjoy that, Rudy. That's your legacy now.
Lecture fan?
I would have supported a Snowden pardon, but absolutely not an Assange pardon. To the extent that the topics about sort of the controversial pardons, that's just what presidents do. Pretty much every president has made controversial pardons on their way out, and I haven't looked at any of them really in the sufficient detail I will be able to say, what the reasoning was behind it or how to justify it or really even how to criticize it. So I don't necessarily know enough about any specific pardons that he did.
Okay. Book smarts?
I think I'm gonna leave on this one. I don't know too much about the pardons, so I think I'm not able to participate in this one.
Okay. Endodax.
Yeah, Trump's a little bitch for not pardoning Assange and Snowden. That's all I'm saying. Listen, the guy basically did the same shit that every other corrupt politician does, where they come in at the end of their term, they fucking pardon all these cronies who got charged with federal crimes. They didn't deserve to get off. They didn't deserve it whatsoever. They shouldn't have done it, but I understand why he did it. It's because he would get basically all the Republicans to turn against him if they didn't. Because at the end of the day, every president uses pardons as a means of like influence. It's kind of sus to me, like. The people, the Kodak Black and Lil Wayne endorsed Donald Trump and then subsequently received pardons not 3-4 months later. Kind of interesting to me how those things coincided. Like maybe that was coordinated, but who cares? I don't care. Listen, I wish Trump would have pardoned some other people. It looks like standard shit. Like this is nothing new. But you think this is the first time a president has pardoned someone who's a piece of shit? No. And if you look at the list, like, there's plenty of pieces of shit on that list. And I'm sure if I went back in time, I could find plenty of pieces of shit on other presidents' pardon lists. Maybe Trump is especially bad. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know. But the media is playing it up, obviously, because, well, it gets some clicks, so.
Okay. Yeah, the panel is open if anybody wants to discuss the pardons.
Lycan, why don't you want to pardon Assange?
Oh, I was going to try to dodge this one. I think Assange is not a good faith actor. I think that the idea behind it and what I believe a lot of people feel is the good reason to pardon Assange is that, he is under persecution for highlighting the wrongs of America, but I believe he's an opportunist, and I think intent matters. It's the same reason I don't support a Snowden pardon. Snowden brought to the light of the American people a very important discussion that needed to happen, but Snowden also shirked existing channels. And had he made any kind of good faith attempt to do that, and going to a manager and saying, hey, I have a problem with this, is not a good faith attempt. Had he made any kind of good faith attempt, I'd be okay with the idea of a pardon, because then it's like, hey, you had no other option. This was not being handled. You did your thing. But he didn't. He did his Boy Scout thing. He was misguided. He was a system administrator, not someone who had any in-depth knowledge of the programs he was talking about. And he irresponsibly leaked, 3,000 documents that he admitted himself that he did not comb through and validate each ones. Now, did a journalist do that for him and selectively release things? Yes, but I think traveling to both China and Russia with those documents, or traveling to China with those documents, and then traveling to Russia with knowledge that he had, the hands of one of our biggest enemies. I'm sorry, the dude needs to stand trial. He doesn't deserve a pardon.
So, I mean, he only ended up in Russia, because he was trapped there. He was supposed to be in Moscow airport for like a few hours, but because his passport was taken away because there was this immense global manhunt basically by the United States to try to nab him, even involving things like illegally boarding Evo Morales' plane, to see if he's on it, which is like an act of war. That's how he ended up, getting trapped in Russia. But I also don't know. I mean, in the case of Assange, whatever criticisms you have of Assange as a person or his overall political beliefs or some of his tactics, I probably agree with some of the criticisms. But what bothers me about this is that he's basically being prosecuted for engaging in investigative journalism. He's not even a citizen of the country that classified this, but still encouraging people to leak classified information and encouraging people to leak things is the core of what investigative journalism is. Is the justification for prosecuting him, which sends an incredibly disturbing precedent. And on the Snowden front, I guess I'm really curious what you think that would have happened if he, what are these legitimate channels that that Snowden should have tried, and what do you think would have happened as a result of that? Because given that at the time support for these programs ran so deep, and bureaucrats in these agencies were so willing to go to bat for them, that Clapper, lied to Congress. He denied that the mass surveillance was going on. Under those circumstances, I have a really hard time imagining that, if only he'd made some complaint through the proper channels, then that would have done anything in terms of bringing these practices to light.
With regard to the Assange thing, the one thing I will admit is that the full extent of his charges that he's being brought up on, I am not educated on all of them. So I will say that my experience, though, my understanding of what Assange has done as far as the way he's operated towards America, it's hard to not empathize with those who want to classify him as an enemy of the state and his actions as not altruistic towards the investigative journalist aspect of what he does, but more as the provocateur aspect. And I think that, there is a degree to which you can call yourself a journalist, but certain behavior does modify the way that people ought to perceive your actions. And so before I talk about Snowden, I want you to respond to that if you have something.
Okay, what did he do that you think falls outside of the definition of journalism?
I think selectively releasing information rather than dumping it. And I'm sorry, let me clarify that real quick. I just praised fucking what's his nuts, the guy who was a good journalist and then went crazy. The guy Snowden leaked shit too.
I disagree that he's crazy, but you're talking about Glenn Greenwald.
Yes. I think that the Glenn Greenwald approach where he ingested it and said, okay, we can release this, we can't release this shit, I think that's good. That's not what Assange does. Assange spreads things out so he can get a lot more attention. He is I believe malicious in his actions towards how he releases things. I don't think it is just I have found something that the American people need to know or the people of this country need to know. I think it's what's going to get WikiLeaks on the map, what's going to cause harm in the direction that I want to cause that harm.
Your liberalness is showing because you're complaining about essentially the Hillary Clinton email.
All right.
No, seriously. No. You're complaining essentially because WikiLeaks leaked the Hillary Clinton emails, and that's what you're upset about because my Russia. Assange has been loved and hated by both political aisles off and on for literally decades. You'd have libertarian conservatives love him, and then progressives love him, and then libertarian conservatives love him, and progressives hate him. It goes back and forth depending on what kind of information he's releasing. Personally, I think Assange is a good faith actor. I think his WikiLeaks is a good platform. I have no problem, especially what do you have a problem with them exposing war crimes that the U.S. is committing? Where's your problem?
Let me give a more cut and dry example. Let me bring up Chelsea Manning. So my issue with Chelsea Manning is that Chelsea Manning did not do what she did out of altruism or hold on, before you throw your hands up, it's going to make sense in a second. What Chelsea Manning did was not an altruistic act for the betterment of the American people. Chelsea Manning was going through a very hard time in Iraq, was a pariah for her unit, and out of spite, dumped 20,000 documents. I think it was about 20,000 plus documents with no vetting or validation of anything. Out of that, a lot of good leaks came, things that being brought to the attention of the American people and the world at large were beneficial. But to justify the actions of that person because some benefit came from it is a post hoc rationalization of that person's actions.
I couldn't disagree with you more on that.
And you couldn't be
Absolutely.
more uneducated on
I don't
the
know,
matter
I don't
of
know what
hold
your
on.
basis is
The point is
believing
that
her stated motivations weren't what she said. What
she
weren't
didn't
what
do it
she
out of
said they
spite.
were.
Like
She
the amount
did.
of risk for
Yes,
spite.
this is wait.
Yes.
This is
The
wait.
amount-
Wait.
but
Wait. Wait.
yes.
This is like the
You
no.
wound up winding up in jail, possibly for
I
life.
also-
Okay, everybody's
Okay,
talking at the same time. Everybody's talking at the same time. So there's 3 people who want to talk. Surf, that was a direct comment towards the Serfs. So the Serfs should be able to respond since Lycan did say they're uneducated. So I believe that Serfs. Then it'll
I
be
think they
bad.
called
No, he didn't say it was
uneducated.
uneducated. He said it was uneducated on the topic, and
Then it'll be Ender.
when it comes to
Okay.
Chelsea Manning, the amount of stuff that she risked by doing that, not to mention the amount of trouble she got in. Like she could have potentially faced life in prison or worse. To do that solely out of spite, I think that's a ridiculous assertion.
That is one of the, so in national security, one of the things that people are looked at for is their satisfaction with the workplace and the experience they're having in the workplace. That is something that is considered for the threat that they pose to national security. Like that's
This
one
is
of
like the no
concepts.
angel argument. This is
I'm
like
sorry,
the no
what?
angel argument.
No, it's
like,
not. No,
Michael
hold on,
Brown
wait.
was no
Hold on.
angel. Like,
Hold on,
who
no, no, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's unironically slanderous.
Articulate it
There's-
without being a smartass.
Okay, you are accusing Chelsea Manning of having ulterior motives to releasing the data, and therefore we should not protect her as a whistleblower. Yeah.
I didn't say don't protect her. I'm saying don't view the actions as something altruistic
So I don't know.
or heroic.
I still don't know why you think that was her motive rather than the motive that she's said many
Because
times.
if you had the motive to, if you saw a wrongdoing, like say you saw like the what's the one where the journalist was killed, the name of that video,
collateral murder.
Yeah, collateral murder. So let's say that that Chelsea had come across collateral murder and saw that and released everything associated with collateral murder. I would have more understanding of the idea that that was released for the sake of exposing a bad thing. But when you dump 20,000 plus documents that have nothing, there's no specific goal there. Or I'm sorry, when you dump that much information, which has such a broad spectrum of shit that she wasn't even associated with in her job.
That was the goal.
She
succeeded in that goal.
leaked it to journalists. She didn't dump it.
Leaking 20,000 random documents is still a salient point.
Yeah, but again, I think this is an important distinction that they have that she gave it to journalists. I think that probably from her perspective, the idea that before she handed it to the journalist she was leaking it to, that she herself, should have gone through this whole big sifting process. I think there's a lot of logistical reasons why that's unlikely. I will just say I'm extremely unpersuaded by the case you've made so far that her motivation was spite rather than a motivation to expose extremely serious crimes that the public wasn't aware of. But I also want to go back to what you said a minute ago, because this is important. You said I asked you what it was that WikiLeaks was doing that's outside of the definition of journalism, and you said spreading things around such that when they came out was to get attention to WikiLeaks, or was for certain kinds of political effects. And what you're describing is stuff that people who everybody thinks are journalists do all the time. When is Bob Woodward not a journalist? Because when he had that bombshell about Trump saying things that that were disconnected from what he was saying in public.
Yes, I think that Bob Woodward not exposing that earlier on in the pandemic, I think that was a calculated move for his book and not for the betterment of the American people. I don't think, because I agree with you. I agree with you with the idea that journalists do release things for political effect, and if you dump everything at once, you can kind of make people numb to a certain narrative and not have the impact you're looking for. I understand that concept. I don't think Julian Assange operates within that concept.
Okay, but
wait. Journalists have always been political.
Is the Washington Post not a journalistic organization? Yeah. Because if you're going to say releasing things for certain effects, covering certain things, not covering other things because of political
certain
effect
and self-serving effect are two different things. So Bob Woodward, for the example you brought up there, the Bob Woodward not releasing the Trump
Okay,
conversation
so
early.
that makes Bob Woodward not a journalist. If
No,
somebody
that doesn't make him not a journalist. So that's
okay,
the thing. I'm not against.
That was the question because I asked what it was that WikiLeaks did that was outside of the definition of journalism, and the stuff that you started to bring up seems like things that other journalistic organizations do all the time, and that none of us would consider them not to be in the business of journalism because they do those things.
So I think when you're going for the effect of a journalistic action, which is, hey, I have been exposed to this information, I now want to expose it to these people so that those at fault are held accountable. I view that as doing what we're talking about in the way intended. I don't believe that Assange operates in that manner. I think it's what's going to get WikiLeaks attention. I think it's what is Julian Assange's personal beliefs and what's going to take action involved with those.
But journalistic organizations release things or don't release things to get maximum attention all the time. That's like a core part of the business model of any media organization. And if you're talking about releasing things or not releasing things for political effect, then if you look at all of the journalistic organizations that pretty openly made a decision not to cover the Hunter Biden stuff just before the election because they were worried about the political effect. I mean, whatever disagreement I may have with that decision, I certainly wouldn't consider them to be outside of journalism for doing that. So again, I'm wondering how all of this addresses the question of what it was that Assange and WikiLeaks did.
Yeah, there's a different answer. There's an actual different answer, though, which is what the official U.S. government answer is in its charging documents, which is that Julian Assange purposefully worked and coordinated with an internal member of the U.S. military who had security clearance and cooperated with him and worked together to purposefully obtain highly top secret information that would damage the United States and then to release that publicly.
Encouraging people to leak things to you is the core activity of investigative journalism. That's what it is.
Yeah, but not like actively working with them in the way that Julian Assange did, where it was basically a dual operation. Like if you're a journalist and somebody brings it to you, that's what journalists do. Journalists receive tips from people. Journalists do not purposefully and actively work towards obtaining secret illegal information and then release that. Journalists would have never have done what Julian Assange did. Journalists actually refuse to do what Julian Assange did.
Investigative journalists don't just passively receive leaks. Investigative journalists, coax sources who are having cold feet,
have to protect the sources
and get them to leak to them all the time. I mean, using the argument that you're making, Woodward and Bernstein, his relationship with Deep Throat.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Journalists are not running operations to obtain highly secret information of the U.S. government militarily and then to release that information publicly to actually do it.
How do you think it happens?
I mean, running operations is just a hysterical and clownish way of saying encouraging people to leak information to them, which is the core activity of investigative journalists.
So I want to say that I disagree with with Lecture Fan in regards to, like, I agree with you, Ben, with regards to that's how journalists do operate. Absolutely. However, I would not fault the United States of America for viewing Assange as an enemy of the state if that information that is leaked is not in, like, there's some information that was leaked that I don't believe to be to have done anything except cause harm to the United States relations with other countries that didn't need to be leaked. I would say the stuff regarding Germany. I think that served no purpose
You're
except
talking about the surveillance of Merkel.
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, that seems like a fairly serious offense that's being exposed. I mean, spying on a Democratic head of state, who's a U.S. ally. That's certainly something I have a problem with. I think that's something a lot of Americans would have a problem with. I'm in favor of us finding out that our government is doing stuff like that so we can have a discussion about whether this is the kind of national security state we want or whether this is overreach.
I think that's a fair point.
That's one of the reasons there's the First Amendment to the Constitution, right? It's to keep the government in check. Freedom of the press. it can't be infringed upon. The idea being that you won't have a populace that can do, you won't have a government that can do things like rise to the levels of monarchies, for example, because that's what they
Can you
were.
give me an example of someone that isn't Assange that the government has tried to? Sorry, to be really clear, because there are cases pretty often where some judge tries to get some, or someone tries to get a reporter to oust a source. I think there was a lot of that during the what's his name, the fucking Nixon's vice president. They tried to get sources for that when during that trial. I can't remember his name. Spiro Agnew. Yeah. So like that shit does happen. It still happens. I'm not in support of that, but can you give me an example of something like equivalent to Assange where it's equally as important? Where if it was ruled in the favor, like that it would kind of, if they succeeded in pressing the charges they wanted to press, that it would set that dangerous precedent.
Oh, but I don't think that's how precedents work, that you can say in advance how it's going to be applied in the future. I think that the way that concerns about precedents typically work is you say that if you have set the precedent that this is something that you can prosecute people for, that then that would enable this to happen in the future. But of course, it's unknowable in advance exactly how that's going to be applied. If if it's applied in the future, but I don't think that means that it's not a concern that a foreign citizen is being prosecuted in the United States for doing investigative journalism, encouraging the leaks of information
I'm sorry.
that happen to be classified by the government of the United States. I mean,
You keep
switch
painting
that
him as
for
a journalist.
an
He's
American
not
and
a
the Chinese
journalist.
government, and I think you see the problem there.
He's simply not a journalist. You keep obsessively and over again
Oh,
calling
no,
him
but
a
you
journalist and
haven't
talking
said
about him. He's a
anything
journalist.
that you've
What
done
journalism
that-
has he
that
ever
isn't-
done? What
that
journalism
isn't
has
a
he written? Has he
routine
spent a
thing
whole
that
bunch of time writing?
investigative journalists do as the core part of their job function. I mean, again,
Okay, what journalism has he done? What journalism has he done?
I think all of WikiLeaks.
Okay, so just WikiLeaks. No, WikiLeaks is not a journalist organization.
Of course, it's a journalistic organization. You haven't said anything.
Just because you disagree
I
with
gotta
the
say.
report.
No,
Sometimes-
I
mean, sometimes you
gotta
might
say.
like it when it's the
Okay,
email.
I
and
gotta
stuff
say.
like that. Then it's
I gotta
fantastic.
say.
But
Journalism
So-
is actually publishing
give-
stuff and writing stuff and
Wait, hold on.
reporting stuff.
Give me a moment here.
To me,
give me a
this
moment.
might help.
Give me.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay, so I just want to say, chat. Some guy Tyler, thank you so much for the 15 gifted sub, but the timing of that made it so everybody pogged the 15 gifted while Lecture Fan was countering. So chat, you just all agreed with Lecture Fan by pogging when he said that. So chat, you are now right wing. You now agree with Lecture Fan. You all want to prosecute Julian Assange. Ben is very disappointed in you. Okay, continue.
I think I'd like to make a point that I think fuck, goddamn, that pog and all that shit distracted me. Shit, fuck. I'm sorry. You guys fight. I'll think about it in a second.
Well, I just love it whenever chat starts agreeing with Lecture Fan. I mean, it definitely sets a new precedence for this order moving forward of bipartisanship, right? Working together and really trying to get to the truth of these matters. Because at the end of the day, right, all we really have is our voices to try to get the truth out there as we know it, have that voice tested from other voices so that eventually we get to the truth and how the government should be moving forward in the best direction possible. And like chat, agreeing with that level 5 hype train, that's a real pog move right there.
I think that there is a threshold for what we call journalism. And I think if I were to give an example that maybe some of us will agree on, I think Tim Pool is someone that still calls himself a journalist, but the way he engages with information and the way he utilizes his platform, I am in no way, shape, or form comfortable calling Tim Pool's YouTube channels journalistic entities.
So what Tim Pool does is he's actually editorializing when he does the stuff. He's not bringing forward new information. He brings up news articles and then gives you his spin on it. I mean, it's very similar to what I do as well, or I mean, other people on this panel possibly, if that's your thing. That's editorializing. He's not investigating. He's not going behind the scenes, finding sources because he really wants to know what's happening. He's an after the fact.
So I want to ask you, Lycan, what is it about Julian Assange and what he does that makes you not want to give him specifically the title of journalist?
He's white.
Understandable.
I got to be honest with you, and I am not surprised by that take at all, considering that you have mentioned Lauren Boebert how many times this time around. And let's not also point out at the same time, right? Or actually, let's do point out that you said that she shouldn't be listened to. That sounds kind of chauvinist. Just saying, bro.
Or like, in what? Why? Why not?
Well, I'm sorry. I was a smart ass. Why don't I think I'm not uncomfortable calling fuck yeah, you know what? I don't know. What does Julian Assange do? Like, does he
Well, here's Tim Pool. Tim Pool actually made his name originally by doing actual journalism.
He was
by
a journalist.
actually going
He
to places.
was,
I
Yeah.
agree.
yeah.
So
I
Tim
agree.
Pool
I
made
agree.
his
He was
name
on the
doing that.
ground for
Okay,
Vice.
Yeah, exactly. He was on the ground. He was actually doing journalism, and now he does streaming. Why? Of course, he's just going to do streaming. And
Look,
stuff.
now what he does is
but
he reads
but
the
Julian
news.
Assange.
Yeah.
Point to me. Okay, you point to me one journalistic piece that Julian Assange has done that you're like, wow, this is journalist that he
So
wrote,
the problem here is
or
you
that he
think the
made,
end
or that he
result
commented.
has to be like a written article or a news program. What he is doing is he is reporting the news by finding these sources, doing the investigation, or just having it given to him and then releasing it to the world so that they can see it themselves.
So in other
so
words, you can't point to actually journalistic work other
Well,
than just
actually, yes,
producing docs.
yes, we can. I think literally everything that's ever been published by WikiLeaks falls into that category. And if you're going to say it's not, then I'd be very curious about whether those of you who think that it's not think that the New York Times was doing something other than journalism, for example, when it published the Pentagon Papers, which is usually considered to be one of the greatest victories for freedom of the press in American history.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think
Well, hold on. That there's differences between when you actually disclose wrongdoing, and so if you have intention to like actually disclose wrongdoing on the part of the government, that's how you actually get legal whistleblower protections. And Julian Assange had never actually had that, and
he was showing footage of the Iraq War. He was showing it to everyone. We hadn't seen what they were doing to civilian casualties before that moment. That's why it was such a groundbreaking thing.
Yeah,
The whole
I mean,
world was aghast.
the WikiLeaks, the WikiLeaks revelations, for the State Department cables showed that the United States had dramatically underestimated, the number of civilian deaths in Iraq that they admitted to. That video that Lycan mentioned earlier, Collateral Murder, showed U.S. soldiers, shooting journalists. I think that spying on Merkel, is an example of wrongdoing that was exposed. But of course, you don't also need whistleblower protections as a foreign journalist just publishing the wrongdoings of the American government. That issue shouldn't come up in the first place. And again, with the Pentagon Papers, which Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked, by the way, certainly does consider the WikiLeaks stuff, to be comparable. If we're interested in in what he thinks, but also, the Pentagon Papers. Are you going to say every page of that was directly exposing wrongdoing? I don't think so.
I mean, wait, hold on. So the Pentagon Papers was a study explicitly about the Vietnam War and what was going on there. And so, yeah, leaking the entire thing. And then when the story is we're in a war that we never should have been in, that we're fucking losing and the government's lying to us, I think it's a salient point to release the entire document. I think it's a little different than grabbing reports that have to do with
but you also
different things around
the second Iraq War, and that
Well,
was kind of the point.
No. But the issue, when discussing the leak from Chelsea Manning, that Chelsea Manning leak was different than here's this document about this war. The Chelsea Manning leak was here's shit from all over the world that the U.S. government is doing that I'm not aware of all the shit that I'm releasing to this report.
Right, and it had individuals' names who were working with us overseas all around the world and substantially put a lot of people's lives in danger, and it was a very dangerous thing. And regardless of anything else we've been talking about, really what matters is Julian Assange's intent, and what do you think of his intent? And based on everything we know about him and how he has operated and what he's done, I don't think he has journalistic intent. I think he has criminal intent with what he does.
In both your cases, though, when you're criticizing Julian Assange,
it's completely irrelevant. Somebody can want a Pulitzer. Somebody can want their name to be on the cover of Time magazine. Somebody can have super patriotic motives. Somebody can be trying to get back at somebody that they have a feud with, and still be doing investigative journalism that falls under the absolute core of what the freedom of press is supposed to protect.
I say all this as someone who does not like Julian Assange, by the way. Like, I agree with you, like, in that I think, like, in a lot of ways, he's kind of just a weirdo egomaniac, but that doesn't change the fact that I think he should have protection for reporting on the things that he did.
So just out of curiosity, sirs, would you say that it was journalism when Tim Pool went back in the good old days when he used to go and just film shit? Was that journalism, or? or was that also?
Filming and reporting on
Alright.
the Occupy movement. You mean at the time?
Well,
for
no.
Vice.
Even
Yes.
after that. So like he was doing like live streams of like there would be like a MAGA event and there would be like a protest, and he would literally just go and film those.
And was there any commentary, criticism, or he just released the footage?
I mean, I'm assuming there was probably.
And was it
commentary.
newsworthy footage, or is it just of people like talking or yelling? Because if it's newsworthy, then yes. If he's just taking footage, releasing that footage, then yes, he's doing a journalism there.
We're all journalists. Lycan, you
And,
know,
I mean, if freedom of the press does also apply to editorial content, that's
Yes,
one of the main things that it's supposed to apply
and
to.
photojournalists are a thing as well, right?
Yeah, sure, exactly. So the question, I mean, if the question is he doing journalism that has great value, that might be a question that's relevant if we're deciding whether any of these people who we're talking about should be like nominated for a journalism award. But if the question is this exactly the sort of thing that freedom of the press is supposed to apply to, then yeah, absolutely yes for WikiLeaks and sure. I mean, whatever. If somebody was locking up Tim Pool for something that he said in the live stream, I'd be against that too. But I think in particular, like publishing leaked instances of wrongdoing by the government is exactly the kind of thing that we need the freedom of press to make sure that people can do.
Lycan.
This might not be the place to have some of this conversation. So if you would ever be interested, Ben, I really enjoyed talking to you and I would love to chat with you again. But
Sure.
one thing I don't like doing is coming up with opinions on the fly publicly, because then it has a bad optical effect and can come across as very disingenuous. But that said, I also hate being pedantic. But that said, looking up Assange, I'm seeing that he's considered an editor and a publisher and an activist, but not an actual journalist. But he does run a journalistic publication. I will give it that WikiLeaks is a journalistic entity. But I would say, like, we hold journalists accountable to the way that they attempt to acquire information and their motives to some degree. Like, we wouldn't just let an individual citizen, even if journalistic protections extend to individual citizens, we don't allow them to engage in certain things without some semblance of scrutiny and repercussions, depending on what the behavior is. If an individual citizen is sitting there pressuring people with access to classified information for any potential information that could make the government look bad, could cause harm, whatever, they would be held to account for that if caught trying to do so, would they not? And so with that, could we not turn that perspective to journalists as well?
I think I missed something somewhere about that. That question. But I would just say two things. One, that we're talking about a really extraordinary assertion of state power here, that we can take anybody from anywhere around the world who is encouraging people to leak to them about the bad things that the United States does, and apply some pretty severe repercussions to them. That's pretty disturbing to me. I mean, as to whether he's a journalist, if he's the editor or the publisher rather than a beat reporter or something, I mean, I guess it depends what you mean. But as far as the freedom of the press issue, if the editor of the New York Times or the publisher of the New York Times is being prosecuted for for something that was printed in the New York Times, I mean, that's every bit as much of a freedom of the press issue as if the person who's byline on it, is being prosecuted for that.
I think when you say that the publisher and the writer would be like the same, would be required or acquired the same protections under the First Amendment. Is that your?
I mean, the whole idea of having these protections is that nobody is going to be prosecuted for bringing this stuff to light, whether what that means is signing off on it as the editor, or signing off on it as the owner of the newspaper, or actually writing the story. I guess I don't see what the relevance of that distinction is supposed to be in this context.
I'm just asking the question. It was asked to me in my chat to ask you, so that was.
Yeah.
I think
so.
That,
I guess.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lycan. Go ahead.
I think that when we're dealing with something as serious as classified information, I think we would all agree that there is classified information that is justifiably classified and that isn't classified for the sake of hiding wrongdoings of the United States government, but is classified for the sake of protecting the efforts of the intelligence community. And I mean, data is classified based on the level of harm that could come to the United States if divulged. That's literally the definition of each classification level. And so with that in mind, I do believe that an entity that is pressuring individuals with access to that information, individuals that aren't like you, people who have clearances aren't all trained to be able to identify the what information can and cannot be disclosed or the full repercussions of that information.
Certainly
which
sounds
is my
like you're pointing out a problem with the government there.
No, because that's an irrational aspect. Like the amount of yes.
Well, don't you think that if the government's going to give somebody a security
No,
clearance, they should
no.
also explain to them the inherent responsibility that security clearance comes with at the same time?
That is absolutely explained 100%. When you sign your
Is it?
non-disclosure, yes.
Well, you
get-
just said in your
no,
argument that they're not.
no. No, the idea that someone can look at every single piece of information and know exactly the full extent of the program behind it, know the extent of what that information means and the repercussions of releasing it. All they need to know is that it says secret, top secret, confidential. That's all they need to know. And if they see that on a document,
Right. So if this information leaks outside of that process, you think that the people that receive this information should assume at that time that it is an official government document, right? And not could possibly be something that somebody put at the top of it, right? Is that what we're assuming here?
no.
Because
right,
once that information gets outside of the government's control, it is free market to whoever gets it, right? Which is why people holding
right.
to
So
this system is very, very important.
So you
Because
as an
you don't know
individual,
if that was information that was acquired under the Freedom of Information Act or
hold on,
or
'cause
any of the,
right. So I haven't gotten to the point I was trying to make, but just to answer your question real quick, the issue is that you as an individual with access to classified information, you see that thing, you know, the requirements, where it needs to be stored, how it needs to be stored, whatever. Anyway. But to finish what I was trying to say is you don't know the full extent that's going to be happening. So you have people pressuring individuals to leak information for them to find that information. You are entering into a world where you could be causing people to just leak shit they don't really fully grasp and understand. And I think that is a problem. I think that's not just hold on. It's not just a journalist going in saying, hey, is something wrong being done? It's someone saying, leak this information. And that person isn't able to make an informed decision on the extent of the harm that's going to happen if they leak it. And
so
that's
you're saying
highlighted with the Chelsea Manning leaks of 20,000 plus documents she didn't vet, and the Snowden thing with 3,000 documents he didn't fully vet.
So what you're saying is that because these people with security clearances failed, right?
No,
because
you are trying to imply something that is highlighting your ignorance of the intelligence community
oh
and
my
how
God,
classifications
have you
work.
ever held a top secret clearance? Have you ever?
Do you think I would disclose that publicly on Twitch if I had?
I have. Right. So since
aren't you a veteran? Aren't you a veteran?
Right. So since I
Not all
have, how
veterans
about
hold
if you
clearances.
engage with what I'm talking about instead of just trying to dismiss it down the fucking road? So what I'm saying here, right, is this. Are you saying that these people that had these security clearances that leaked this information, right, to a journalist, right, shouldn't be held liable, and that the journalist should be fined? Or are you saying that because the journalist got a hold of the information that somehow the journalist should be the one held responsible, even though they're not directly involved with this information, right? So who gets held responsible here? Because I'm not for people not being held responsible, but it certainly seems like Julian Assange, who is the reporter in this that received this information, right?
I hold both parties responsible.
Both parties,
are.
right? So you
They
don't think
were.
that
They
they're
were.
literally the First Amendment applies to these journalists? Is that what you're saying?
We're not talking about it strictly an individual that comes across some information and says, hey, I think I need to leak this. We're talking about entities that are encouraging people to find shit to leak. There's
always going to be entities that are going to be encouraging people to fucking leak. It's whether or not they have any integrity, is whether or not it actually holds.
What?
Yes, you have to have integrity, right? In order to hold the information secret, top secret, etc. Right? If you don't have integrity and you leak that information, that's where the fucking problem is, right? But you would hold the journalist who's reporting this information responsible, when in reality, it's the journalist should be putting this information out. It's the people that release the information to begin with that is the real fucking problem, if you have a problem at all.
I would hold. So let's say we're talking about a journalist that's going.
By the way,
to
I just want to be clear. We gotta
Yep.
start wrapping it up, and we're gonna start doing outros. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess my closing statement on this idea is that if we have a journalist that's going around talking to people that work at different corporations within a certain industry, such as let's say the healthcare industry, right? And they're fishing for stories there because their beat is healthcare, I don't give a shit, right? But if we're talking about an entity that has no specific beat and is seeking the juiciest fucking information from the United States government and probing people who hold a clearance for that, yeah, I think that behavior is definitely different and definitely something that you can hold both the journalistic entity and the individual who releases the information accountable for. I'm not going to fault a person from the healthcare system that fucking highlights how fucked up insurance policies are and the back end dealings that happen. I'm not going to get pissed about that. But what I am going to get pissed about is an entity that is actively seeking to release classified information and potentially creating an environment that releases information that should never have been released. And I'm not talking about from a protecting the government standpoint. I'm talking about if something is going to get leaked that shouldn't have been leaked. We've seen that happen.
So I guess at this point, the only thing that I can say, and I'm just going to keep pinging you on this because I think it's fun, right? Lauren Bobart, right, who you said was hot. I hope she doesn't ever come asking you for any type of classified information because I got a feeling, buddy, that you'd give it to her, right?
No, see,
So,
I
don't know.
have
You tell her to
integrity.
shut up and just give her and give her whatever information she wants. I kind of feel like that's kind of where we're at with that particular issue. So I'm ready to move into closing statements. That's
Yeah,
we're at.
I think everybody, as I can tell from the exasperated faces tonight, that we had a discussion. Lecture fans like, get me the fuck out of here. Okay, okay. So, thank you for all coming. I know it's a big time commitment, and there's research done and such, and I appreciate everybody coming out here. We did pretty well today. Chat seemed to really enjoy all the discussions. We talked about stuff that are not getting a lot of attention, like the pardonings, and now that Biden's off and Medicare for All didn't get a lot of attention, and I think we had a decent discussion. So we're gonna go into outros, and we're gonna start with Endernex at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have much to say other than what I said at the beginning. I think it's, I was very disappointed Snowden and Assange didn't get pardons. I said a bit, at the beginning, and then I had to go, and then I came back, and I didn't really participate. I felt like I missed part of the conversation. So good on you for having that discussion. Yeah, I'm. This is like the end outro too. Yeah. Like we're okay, cool. Yeah, I'm Endernex. I'm pretty weird politically. I kind of came to all my opinions irrespective of ideology. I landed up where I am. If you're dumb enough to accuse me of being some type of evil extremist hell-bent on killing the minorities, well, you're probably not a very intelligent individual, but I'm always willing to have a conversation. You can probe me with as many questions as you want so that we can discern the truth as to whether or not Endernex is the biggest bigot on Twitch politics. I'd imagine I'd be banned if I actually was by now and not have 2,300 followers. But, whatever. Who cares? I guess Twitch is just lazy. I hope all of you have a wonderful night. Thank you for having me on, Dylan. I appreciate coming on, and I had a great time.
Wonderful. Next is gonna be Lecture Fan, so he can go to bed.
Yeah. No, thanks. I had fun, and I'm Lecture Fan, #1 constitutional law channel on Twitch, #1 conservative politics channel on Twitch. Check it out, Lecture Fan, LCTR fan, and Dylan. Appreciate it.
Problem. Happy to have you on. Next is going to be CTV.
Well, I think that I can definitely agree with Lecture Fan on the constitutional law part, but the #1 conservative, buddy, I don't know, right? I think you might need to get some lights. I think you might need to.
True.
I think you might need to do some of that, right?
I agree.
Second Amendment during the debate, it says a lot about how committed you are to the idea. So
True.
So I think we should be having some more conversations moving forward, brother. For Dylan, definitely appreciate the invite back to this wonderful, glorious castle that is Dylan Burns TV and the Hippy Dippy podcast. Always a pleasure being here. Endernax, always love seeing you, brother. Ben, it was nice to meet you. Search TV, haven't seen you enough. And you two haven't seen you two enough either. But if you two or anybody else that happens to be watching right now wants a respectful debate about the points of the day, feel free to come by the Wolfpack on Critically Thinking Veterans channel. And we make it a point to where we do not ban your freedom of speech, but if you do say some dumb shit, the moderators are instructed to delete your messages and time you out, but not to ban. So don't worry. If you say something messed up, there is redemption there. So moving forward from that, always a pleasure. And I am deeply, deeply excited about the direction of Twitch politics moving forward, because I hope that everybody has had a chance to get over their TDS.
I will say, actually, I'm the best conservative streamer on Twitch, and the reason why is I got one American flag there, like you all have one, but I got another one over here. So I seem to love America the most. I'm the #1 conservative streamer. Not to mention, I got another one right here. So I'm dominating right now.
I hear you, but it's not illuminated.
I mean, look, you're right, but that's why I have 3. I'm making up for it, right?
I hear you.
Okay.
Shaman status, definitely.
Shaman status, yes. Next, we're gonna throw it over to Ben Burgis.
Yeah, I'm Ben Burgis. I am the host of Give Them an Argument, which is a podcast, and also new episodes air live on YouTube on 7:30 Monday nights Eastern Time. And I'm a columnist for Jacobin, and since it's okay if I'm muted for the rest of the stream, because this is the last thing I'll say, I think we desperately need Medicare for all.
Fair enough. Okay, mods. My mods are going to be a lot more brutal to you, Ben, than the Capitol Police were to the people on January 6th. Okay.
That was kind of weak, though.
We're gonna throw it over to Lycan.
Hey, hello. Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Cool. All right. First of all, Dylan, as always, thank you for having me. I much appreciate it. This is always, I think, the best panel show on Twitch as far as politics go. Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone here. I really enjoyed engaging with you. I feel like this is I can't think of an analogy off the top of my head, but like, we all fight and bicker here, but I think at the end of the day, we'd all have a beer or a drink of choice and be pretty chill. And I appreciate that vibe from you all. With that, I think the only real outro thought I'd say is if you cannot engage with someone's counterpoint to anything about the government or police with a more thoughtful idea, except you're a bootlicker, how's that boot taste? I bet Lycan's breath smells like shoe polish. You should genuinely consider whether or not you're capable of rational thought, because the reality is I remember a lot of that discourse. In fact, I haven't heard the bootlicker shit since the summer. It's not good reflection on you. I know that you and your peers like to circle jerk that idea, but it's not a good reflection on you or your capability to engage critically with an idea. So I challenge you to go forth and find something fucking better to say than bootlicker. With that, thank you all, and you all have a great night.
Wonderful. By the way, chat, you know what? We're gonna take the risk. We're gonna end up raiding John Zerka. We're gonna see what happens there. I'll take your recommendation. Okay. Well, now we're gonna wrap it up with TheSerfs.
Oh, I was like, I guess he's just cutting me off. Fine. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. Sorry we didn't give everybody a lot of spicy memes, because it seems like we just ended up having a good faith, friendly conversation, across the aisle. This was the dream. It happened. I will say this, the one thing that I learned today, that was something I actually probably will remember forever, was that fact, and that was that strap-on spelled backwards is no parts. So thank you, CTV, for that. I'm never
You're welcome.
That. Yeah,
you're welcome. And if you want another one, right? Damn it, I'm mad. Backwards is damn it, I'm mad.
It's just like Taco Cat.
Wow. Taco Cat.
And yeah, if you want to check out my stuff, it's twitch.tv/TheSerfs. Thanks again, Dylan, and to everyone else here for fun times.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And I want to tell everybody, for the secret project that everyone funded, that nobody knows about, doesn't know what's happening. I can just say we're going to have an update for everybody in chat who's curious about that project, about the future of the Hippy Dippy Roundtable, and that we're going to have a champion's attitude going forward. Just stay tuned for that.